Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Queens Baseball Convention Virtual Edition for 2021. I want to thank everybody for subscribing. I want to thank everybody that's participating today. I want to thank all our past volunteers and vendors that we've had over the years, and we can't wait to do this live again soon. I just want to do a quick little mention of the past events of how great they were, and I want to throw a special shout out to some of our vendors like August Panorama, ShadeMemorabilias.com, Mr. Moody Met, Chris Maloney, Gotham Baseball, Metro Baseball Magazine, and of course the MediaGoon.com, which is mine. And I really want to thank everybody again for all the love over the years and all the support. So check out www.queensbaseballconvention.com. There's a virtual tip jar there. We're not begging for money. You guys can give whatever you want. We just thought it would be good to throw up something like that to help for the future QBCs, since we're not able to make any money to put forward. So let me start bringing in the people from the State of the Mets panel. Here's your host from Gotham Baseball, Mark Healy. Thank you, Mark, for showing up.
Hey, thanks, Keith. I really appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thank you for doing this. You've been a great supporter over the years. I really appreciate this. So I'm going to let you do the honors of bringing in your guests.
Great. We do this every year, and we've always had the great cooperation with Keith and Dan and the rest of the folks at QBC. And, we can't do it without the people that volunteer their time also to be part of the panel. And first, I'd like to introduce from Newsday, Tim Healy. We have the same last name, spelled correctly. We are not related, although I think Tim wishes we were. Hey, Tim, welcome to the State of the Mets panel, buddy.
Hello, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. Parking is a little easier this year, but hopefully, hopefully next time it's in person again.
Coming up next is a guy that we've had on a bunch of times on the State of the Mets panel, somebody I love to spar with on Twitter, and that's, of course, my good buddy Joe DeMayo from SNY. Hey, Joe, how are you today, buddy?
I'm good, Mark. Appreciate you having me again.
Oh, anytime. And then last but not least, our newcomer to this year's panel is WFAN's Lori Rubinson. Lori, welcome to the panel, and really so thrilled that you could be part of our discussion today.
Thanks so much for including me, and I look forward to mixing it up with everybody.
Okay, right, so let's. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
I'm going to let you guys go. Nobody needs to see my ugly mug for as more than they need to. So I'm going to pop up and let you guys handle this. I'll see you in about an hour or so. Thank you, guys.
Keith will be giving me the wrap it up sign, because sometimes we go a little over. But obviously yesterday, to all of you, and I guess we'll start with Tim, because you covered the team directly, and obviously had to really pay attention yesterday to what was going on. Look, obviously not signing Bauer. They wanted to sign Bauer. There's no question that Sandy Alderson had targeted Bauer for the rotation, and maybe didn't offer as much to Springer for that reason. But in your mind, and I want everyone to weigh in on this. In your mind, how much does this derail Sandy Alderson's plans for the 2021 Mets?
I don't think it significantly derails the plans for the 2021 Mets. As I put it in my story in Newsday today, Bauer was more of a luxury than a necessity for the rotation, which isn't really it's not a pressing need. If they want to add another mid-rotation guy like Rich Hill, Jake Odorizzi, somebody like that, they can swing that. They have room. They have the money to do that. But it's not like Bauer was going to make or break their offseason, which has been a pretty productive offseason. Absolutely.
Joe?
No, I don't think it derails them at all. Like Tim said, they certainly could still address starting pitching. I'd like to throw James Paxton's name in there as someone I think that can make some sense. Certainly, he's a guy that you can't rely on to be healthy. So maybe kind of a mix with him and Noah Syndergaard a bit in the second half. You might have to skip Noah here and there for innings reasons. So I don't think it's the end of the world. And, personally, I just I didn't want Trevor Bauer. I've made that very abundantly clear. But I give them credit to the fact that they were willing to pivot and willing to really give it a shot. Like, they didn't give, a so-so offer. They offered more total money than the Dodgers did. And you can't blame them for trying. It just, Bauer wanted to be in LA. That's what it comes down to.
What about you, Lori?
I think two things can be true at the same time. One, yeah, sure, and the Mets would have been better off if they had Trevor Bauer as a baseball team on the field. But for Mets fans, I think it can also be true that I like to talk about the my jerk theory of sports. And when somebody is clearly a jerk, if we all acknowledge this guy's a jerk, then he comes to your team and suddenly he's my jerk, he's our jerk. And for Mets fans, we would have all been doing, mental gymnastics to convince ourselves that we love this guy, and maybe we would have fallen in love with him. Maybe he would have been a Latrell Sprewell, choke your coach, come to our city, play really hard. We love this guy. He's our jerk. He's no longer a jerk. We love him. And we explained it all away. I think we would have been doing a lot, wrapping ourselves like pretzels to try and convince ourselves how much we love Trevor Bauer and excusing some of the behavior because now he's our jerk.
I really think that the Mets dodged a bullet myself. As I tweeted yesterday, that, for me, I feel like I always felt that if Bauer didn't come to the Mets, I never wanted him. I was with Joe. I really didn't want him on the team. But I think that they dodged a bullet. Thank you. Welcome Daily News, by the way. They completely stole my entire tweet for their back page. And yes, I will take credit for that because they followed me. So, but for my thing, I never thought he was going to sign with the Mets. I always felt that, he was trying to get the Angels involved, and that's why he never, publicly, confirmed the fact that he wasn't going to sign with the Angels because of Mickey Callaway, and look how that turned out, ironically. But I think at the end of the day, to answer my own question, is that I don't think it derails what they were willing to do or what they are still willing to do. And that leads me to my next question, and I'll start with you first, Lori. Now that Bauer has not been acquired, unlike past ownership, which only seemed to be able to do one thing at a time because they had to wait for an unqualified family member to weigh in and give the okay. What's next? Like, what do you think is next? I happen to think that maybe Chris Bryant might be somebody that they start looking towards. I mean, Joe mentioned Paxton. I mean, what do you think they're going to do next? Or is this the team that's going to, go to camp in a couple of weeks?
I definitely don't think they're finished with the roster. I think that we'll see there's money to spend, and I think we will see continued roster improvement. It'll be interesting to see now, does that take hold with a Jackie Bradley Jr. in center field? Is that for sure? I think we'll see improved depth with the starting rotation. And does that mean I agree with Joe? I put it out there also. I happen to like somebody like a James Paxton, where if you have money, so what? Bet on the upside of someone who can really be an impact starter down the stretch and into the playoffs if he's right and healthy. And if not, you have Noah Syndergaard coming back, so you don't need a full season out of a Paxton. But I'd take somebody with a high end on that. I think in this season, you'll see every team, but certainly the Mets, teams with resources, you need more starting pitching depth than ever before because we're coming off of a 60-game season. So all the innings limits and stuff that fans hate, now we're coming up, nobody's stretched out. We're coming off of guys. They're going to be really careful with a lot of guys. So I think we'll see moves from the Mets, whether those will be big moves or just a lot of depth. I think they will now be smart and take advantage. Prices are down. Who's out there? No one else has money. I think they'll improve the team using those resources.
And what about you, Joe?
No, I certainly don't think they're done. And center field's an interesting conundrum, right? Because Jackie Bradley Jr. makes all the sense in the world. I mean, sure, he's a left-handed hitter, but ultimately you face way more righties than lefties, generally speaking. So I don't think that's a massive deal. And you could bat him in the bottom of the order. But is there going to be a DH? All signs are indicating no at this point, and that can change. I'm sure Tim could speak a little more on that. But if that changes and we end up getting the DH, then Bradley makes a ton of sense. But if you don't have the DH, who are you sitting? Brandon Nimmo, Dom Smith? You want those bats in the lineup. So center field could be a Bradley situation, or maybe they look to an Albert Almora or bringing back a Jake Marisnick and just kind of having a defensive guy to spell Nimmo. Third base, like you said, Mark, I think could make some sense. I don't know if the Cubs are going to trade Chris Bryant at this point. There's certainly mixed reports on that. They might hold him till the deadline and, kind of reevaluate as the season goes. But I know Anthony DeComo brought up Marwin Gonzalez, who's a pretty interesting guy to me. I mean, he plays basically everywhere except for center field and catcher. And I'm a big guy on versatility. And frankly, Marwin Gonzalez is a guy that I could envision coming in and end up playing more games at third base than JD Davis, because he's graded out as an above average defensive third baseman. And the Mets have some concerns about JD there. Then you go to the rotation. James Paxton's on the top of my list, but Rich Hill could be there. Taijuan Walker makes some sense. They have some options, to really bolster, call it the back end of the rotation, because at the top, they're fine. DeGrom, Cookie Carrasco, Stroman. You got David Peterson, Syndergaard coming back. Now you have depth with Lucchesi, Jordan Yamamoto. They signed Jared Eichhoff to a minor league deal. So the depth of the starting pitching is better. And then I'd like to see one more bullpen addition. I know it's the bullpen's a little full. Maybe it's not full with ideal options, but someone like Trevor Rosenthal, who I think really broke out this year, would make a ton of sense. If you could get him on a 1-year deal for $3 or $4 million, I think that deal would make a ton of sense. Just spread the wealth a bit is kind of what I'm thinking at this point, is get a little bit of everything, improve the overall depth of the roster.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think Joe and Lori pretty much touched all of the bases, and one that doesn't get mentioned a lot, but Joe touched on it at the end, is the bullpen, which was bad last year and bad the years before that. And all they did to improve it is add Trevor May, who's solid, and add Aaron Loop, who's had a solid last year, but is sort of hit and miss in his career. They needed a lefty, and they filled that hole. So I think they could absolutely stand to benefit by adding another reliever, another good reliever. The center field thing, as Joe explained very thoroughly, is quite the conundrum. Maybe I give MLB and the MLBPA too much credit, but I have to believe that before real games are played, the DH is going to be in the National League again, and for good. We saw it last year. It was a thing of beauty. We didn't have to watch any pitchers hit, which is always preferred. I think everybody can probably agree on that at this point. Just kidding. And for the Mets in particular, they're in a really tough spot if there's no designated hitter, because if you do add the center fielder, somebody has to sit, as Joe said. And if you don't add a center fielder and there's no DH, then you're weak defensively in center with Nimmo, in left with Dom Smith, and you're only okay at first base with Pete Alonso. Whereas if you had the DH, all of those spots are better. Sandy Alderson this offseason was pretty clear in talking about Dominic Smith that he's not an outfielder, and I think anybody who's watched him can say that, and no offense, but he's a first baseman and a very good one. He can play left field in a pinch, but you don't really want him out there regularly. And then the rotation thing, I don't think they need somebody, but if they want to add somebody, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. I would like to take Lori's James Paxton thinking and apply it to Rich Hill. Rich Hill, when he is healthy, is a premier starter, an excellent pitcher, but he's very frequently hurt. So I think if you sign him, pencil him in for 15 to 20 starts, something like that, and then fill it in with Syndergaard when he comes back, or Yamamoto, or Lucchesi, all these optionable depth starters they have now. Honestly, they're a perfect fit for Rich Hill. They should really make that happen. And he's 41 years old, so I don't know that he wants a multi-year deal, really.
And you mentioned Lucchesi and Yamamoto, those two guys in particular. I love watching those two guys pitch. So when the Mets acquired them, I kind of thought, hey, these are two really interesting pieces that could be developed, in a way. And I was reading something this morning, and I'm sorry, I hate to not give credit, but I was reading something this morning about somebody basically thinking that there's going to be more 3-inning starters probably in baseball in 2021 than there's ever been. Bringing in guys to kind of bridge the gap between the starters and the back end of the bullpens, simply because guys are not, as Lori, I think you pointed out, they're not stretched out. Guys don't really know. Some of them, let's be honest, when the Mets acquired Lucchesi and Yamamoto in particular, they didn't identify them as starters. They didn't identify them as relievers. Not that ever is the end all be all for these acquisitions, but I think in that sense, that's why I liked both of them. Now, again, we're not going to find out until a month from now, and even then, we're not going to might not even need a fifth starter for the first couple of weeks of the season. So I think that remains to be seen, and I think you're right. I think that, do they need someone, Tim, in that starting rotation? No, but it would be nice if they added another starter. So that certainly is. You all talked about some really interesting things. Now I want to talk about something that may make the fans eye roll, but I think it's important for us to discuss, and that is the Jared Porter, scenario. What happened? I mean, I think it took us all by surprise. I think that I made some jokes in the beginning that could the guy wear a tie? Like just stuff like that. But nothing prepared me for, and I don't think it prepared anyone for how everything went down. And I wrote about it this week in my column in the Wave, and I want to ask you guys, you folks, this question. Did the Porter situation prevent the Mets from doing business as usual this offseason, in particular with, these acquisitions these last few weeks? And two, how can the Mets really kind of bounce back from this? Because what I said in my column was that I think we're all going to remember Hannah Kaiser asking Sandy Alderson if he had asked any women during the course of vetting Jed Porter, like we're going to remember, or the way we do remember, Al Campanis being asked about black managers in Major League Baseball. And I really think we're going to remember that, because I think every time now a general manager is going to be hired, we're going to remember that question. So I'll start with you, Lori. Do you think that the Mets were prevented from doing business as usual because of the Porter situation? And B, what should the Mets do to kind of fix what obviously is something broken, not just with them, but certainly in Major League Baseball? But people are looking to the Mets now as an example of what could be done or what should be done.
So I'll step back even to your first comment when you said we were all caught by surprise about the Jared Porter news. And I'll say that I was both, yes, like everyone else, caught by surprise in this specific instance, because everyone raved about what a wonderful guy he was. But from a female perspective, am I surprised that this, not the specifics of it, but that there was an issue? Not so much. If you talk to women who are involved in sports and covering sports, and I think we all saw an outpouring of things, is that incidences are more common than maybe a lot of people believe. So I'm not sure this specific situation is surprising, but in general, maybe not so surprising. So then to get to your point about 2 points there. One is two questions. One, did it impact the Mets in how they went about business, free agency, all of it, player acquisition so far? I don't think in terms of those big ticket deals that the big free agents, I think Sandy Alderson was pretty clear, and I believe him that he was more responsible for the Lindor Carrasco trade. He was driving the bigger business, the bigger free agency. I don't think it impacted that. Where I think we see the hand of a Jared Porter on this roster, quite frankly, it was well reported in the Joey Lucchesi acquisition. And those interesting, and that to me was actually quite a smart acquisition. And we hope now that acting general manager Zach Scott has some of those same connections and that same strategic thinking to improve a roster at the margins in ways to uncover those hidden value acquisitions and in ways that don't cost you much. And a pitcher that has options, that adds to your versatility and has upside, all of that. So maybe they were cost a little bit of that because that caused some swirl and the team doesn't get that benefit. In terms of where to go forward, I think, yes, it means more diversity, equity, and inclusion across baseball. And I think that when Sandy Alderson is talking about almost an FBI-like forensic interview process, if you don't change your mindset and the inclusion of people involved in the process, then you can have any FBI process you want. I don't think you'll get to these things. And an obvious thing would be that, it is asking a lot more people for points of view if you're going to make a big signing, whether it's front office or for a player, is to, I know it sounds like a big duh, but ask female reporters in the markets who've covered these people. It's not that hard, but I would do the same thing for, ask people of color, ask different sorts of people, what was this experience like? And honestly, if it's a free agent, if it's a front office person, ask people, other members of that front office, not just ask Ben Cherington, but asking female members who worked in a Red Sox organization or worked in a Cubs organization, get different points of view. And that will, I think, help things in moving forward. Honestly, I'll say this to the Mets. If they want ideas, I would have a lot of ideas on how you could improve this and make it better, a better, more inclusive process for women, certainly, but for everyone.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, I didn't know it was my turn. All right. As far as moves, I don't think it really made a huge difference. To Laurie's point, Sandy essentially is running the show right now. And Porter was involved in the Lucchesi trade. Sandy essentially said that. But ultimately, he was still learning. I mean, he was the GM for 37 days or whatever. So he was still learning the organization so he didn't even get off the ground. So I think the effect is more long-term. So I think Sandy was envisioning, a situation in a year or two where he could kind of step aside, and then you'd have Jared Porter as the president of baseball operations and Zach Scott as GM, and you'd have that two-headed monster, so to speak, that teams like the Indians have. I think that was the vision. And obviously that vision is now not going to happen. But all in all, for right now, I don't think a really huge difference without Porter. More thinking ahead, it could have been. But as far as going forward, I give them, credit for acting really swiftly. I mean, it didn't linger. It came out late at night. By the time I woke up for work the next morning, he was fired. So they acted swiftly. So I'll give them a little credit for that. But ultimately, the vetting process has to improve. And I was going to say a lot of the things that Laurie said. You should be reaching out to reporters when you're talking in the region that you're trying to hire someone from, whether that's a manager or a general manager. You should be doing this on everybody, because I do think this is a problem in baseball that is, and in all facets of life, really, but specifically for this conversation, baseball, that's the way, women get treated, unfortunately. And it's awful and despicable. And, you have to go outside of kind of the boys club. You don't just ask the people closest to the person you're trying to hire, because ultimately, ask about someone really close to me, chances are I have a good opinion of them if they're that close to me. So you want to ask people that have bit of an outsider opinion, like Lori said, reporters in the area, and, ask people that may have a relationship with him kind of at a different level than, people that are just super close to him. So the vetting process has to change. I don't know if you could really get to the point of FBI level, as Sandy said, where, like, I mean, are you going to ask them to turn over their cell phone? And are people going to do that? Like, there's some level of like invasion of privacy in a sense, right? So you have to, it's a really tough line, but they obviously need to do significantly better. And this isn't a Mets conversation. It just so happens that the Mets are a team that got impacted by it now. This is a baseball issue, and everybody should be, taking something from this and realizing I can improve my hiring process, and that should go for everybody.
What about you, Tim?
I think, in terms of moves and off-season goings on, it didn't really move the needle much, as Lori and Joe said. As far as what can be improved, you let off the discussion, Mark, with the question from Hannah Kaiser of Yahoo about, did you talk to any women? And Sandy said no. And I sort of buy Sandy's answer, and from the perspective of, there are no women to ask. And that's true under the way that teams currently operate, because they don't talk to subordinates when they're looking to hire somebody. And there aren't many women in baseball at those assistant GM levels. I would hope and think that one of the things teams are learning from the past few weeks, Mets and everybody else, is that it would help to change the way you operate on that front. If there aren't any women who are peers or bosses of the people you want to hire, then ask the women working below them, or ask reporters who have covered and been around them. When the Mickey Callaway stuff came out this week, and Sandy eventually came out with this statement that night that they've already begun changing the vetting process, I look forward to, and I anticipate staying on top of that and wondering what changes they're making. The Mets at this point have done most of their hiring for the offseason, but it doesn't mean that they can't adopt new policies in the near term. We'll see what happens with the general manager spot, and if Zach Scott stays there with the more permanent title or whatnot. But say he does stay there, the Mets aren't going to need to make a major hire probably for the next few years, barring something unexpected. And I guess with the Mets, there's always something unexpected that happens. But, it'll be worth following up on, from my perspective as a reporter who, gets to talk to Sandy every now and then, that, what are those changes specifically?
Yeah,
go ahead, Lori. Go ahead, Lori.
Look, this may drive Mets fans crazy, but for perspective, Brian Cashman and the Yankees hired Kim Ng and gave her an opportunity in her growth and development. And they have Gene Afterman as an assistant GM, longtime assistant GM with that baseball team. So there are female assistant GMs happening in this town, and the Mets, to Tim's point, could be one of those teams. I'm not saying, that that's definitely the move they should make, but they should be thinking about ways to broaden and diversify the talent base of who they bring in at all levels.
That's an excellent point, Lori, and thank you all for, I know that's not exactly the kind of question I usually ask, but I think I think it begs to be asked. As someone who is an editor-in-chief of a newspaper myself, I go through. Let me tell you something. When I vet somebody that I'm bringing on board, I don't have an FBI level, but I ask everybody. I know a lot of people in this business, and I reach out to, I don't just reach out to the bosses, because sometimes, you just don't know. And I've been asked to give recommendations for people, and I haven't, and maybe those people would be shocked to know that I didn't, but I take it very seriously, my recommendation. And, a couple of people in the comments are saying, well, let's get back to baseball. This is, look, the reason we have to talk about it is because this is the crap that gets in the way. So, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because if it's not being dealt with in a thoughtful manner, if we're not asking questions as members of the media or as fans, if we're not holding our front office personnel, our on the field personnel, our players more accountable for the way that they, behave and the way that they represent the organization, it's hard for me to root for people like that. So, that's why we're talking about it. So let's get back to it.
And honestly, us just sticking to baseball is a way that this won't progress too, in a sense.
Right.
If we just ignore it, we're just going to be in the same spot.
It's tunnel vision, and we just can't. We have to kind of be able to. The reason that the conversations aren't had is because they're awkward, and maybe not everyone is capable or has the skill set. I bring up skill set in a Met conversation. That's funny. It's time. Those days are over. We have to talk about it. We have to be able to have those conversations, and frankly, I think we'll be the better for it. When we get through that awkwardness, and that really, I definitely want to give fans an opportunity to ask some questions. We have Jack Schwartz that's here. He said, and I'm going to give this to Tim. What do you think would cost more, Hendricks and Bryant from the Cubs, or Suarez and Sonny Gray from the Reds, and what could those costs look like as far as players?
That's a tough one. Off the top of my head, I guess, does anybody else know? I don't know Hendricks and Gray's contract status off the top of my head.
Gray is 2 years, $20 million with a third-year option, and Hendricks, I think, is 2 years, $28 million and an option, something like that.
So very, very comparable.
Yeah. Yep.
Very affordable. Most of the price would probably be on the pitcher. The Cubs are not going to get a lot for Chris Bryant, who has 1 year left and is going to make a lot of money this year. I don't anticipate the Mets doing either of those things. If they did happen, they'd have to go back into their farm system. And the Mets have said that they don't want to trade their top 6 or so prospects, which is all of the names that you're familiar with: Ronnie Mauricio, Matt Allen, Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Pete Crow Armstrong. I'm sure I'm missing somebody else, but
JT Ginn probably.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. JT Ginn. Right. And if they don't want to trade those guys, then are they going to be able to make an enticing enough offer for those players when those teams don't need to move those players? And on the Reds note specifically, I don't usually buy into the, playing in New York, afraid of the big bad media, because I know the media and we're just a bunch of people, right? But the Sonny Gray thing and the stark contrast in his performance from the A's to the Yankees, where he was terrible, to the Reds, where he was amazing again, it makes me wonder a little bit if it was something about New York that made him perform less effectively. So they've traded all that they can, I think, from the major league roster, and prospects wise, they want to hold on to a lot of those guys. So I don't know that they're gonna go down that road.
I would just jump in and say, Tim, that Sandy Alderson, they did talk at that first introductory press conference about wanting to use more dollars versus trading minor league talent at this
right.
point. I think fans may have been, looked at the Lindor-Carrasco trade and say, oh, well, they didn't mean that. I think that was such immense value and opportunity for the team that they went ahead and did it. But moving forward, unless there is somebody, a third baseman, somebody sitting there who you have to give up almost next to nothing because the club they just want to get rid of the contract, and there's some reason you want to do that. But in terms of adding starting pitching, I think this is where they'll use financial resources to fill out the roster, not trading away from their prospect base.
And Joe, Joe is the guy, whenever I have a question about prospects, Joe's always been the person that I go to. I mostly trust him.
Better than a lot of people say. So I'll take it.
But Joe, let's be honest. I know that the farm system as well as anyone. And, I don't think they have the depth right now to make those kinds of, even with some of the depth deals and trades and signings that they've made. I don't really think they have the wherewithal, prospect-wise, to make another pitcher position player deal. I think that's kind of one of those MLB trade rumor crazy comment things that people are just assuming now because the Mets got Lindor and Carrasco, that now they're going to go out and get another position player and a pitcher in the same deal.
Yeah, right? I mean, it would be really tough to pull off, certainly without using the top guys that, as Tim pointed out, Sandy Alderson has made it clear that they intend to keep those guys. Of the trade scenarios, maybe you can pull off, if the Cubs do want to rid themselves of Chris Bryant, you could pull off Chris Bryant alone. Bringing Hendricks in is when you start diving into the upper echelon prospects.
Exactly.
And I think you can make the argument that if they want to trade Chris Bryant, it's a perfect fit for the Mets. I mean, he's an average defensive third baseman, and JD Davis is certainly below average. But you bring in a Hendricks, if you just leave him out, get Chris Bryant, I guess, on the cheap-ish with prospect capital, and then go sign James Paxton, go sign Rich Hill, like Tim said, and fulfill the starting pitching that way rather than using the prospect capital. I think I do believe them that they want to hold on to those top guys for now. And, there's going to be a time when a deal comes up where maybe it makes sense to trade one of them. And the hope is that, under Tommy Tanis, the scouting director, does a great job, if they keep adding prospects, then you have more flexibility to deal guys. I mean, look at what the Padres do. The Padres have such a wealth of prospects that they can trade their 7th or 8th prospect, and their 7th or 8th prospect is a lot better than the Mets' 7th or 8th prospect, so they're able to get a better player with that. So it's just they need to upgrade the system. It's a bottom 10 system in baseball right now, and there is talent, but it's all low minor stuff. So I mean, if you look at those top 6 that they say they don't want to trade, every single one of them is going to play in single A this year. They don't have one top level prospect that's going to play double A or above.
Lori, you're on, I still think it's the station in New York. Sorry, ESPN. But I still think the Fan, where I interned in 1995 and have always dreamed of being, a host on the show. So you're living my dream there, Lori. You must get a ton of phone calls about the manager. You must get a ton of phone calls whenever the Mets lose. This Luis Rojas, he doesn't know what he's doing. Why did the Mets hire this guy? I happen to like his background. I happen to like him and interacting with him. And I'm going to shoot it to you because you probably get so many calls about this. How do you feel comfortability-wise with Luis Rojas? Because we really haven't spoken about Luis Rojas at all this offseason, except in the beginning press conference, Tim, if you remember, when Sandy was just like kind of off the cuff, was like, oh yeah, we're going to ask him to come back. And really there hasn't been much discussion since then about Luis Rojas. So as someone who is constantly taking the temperature of the fan base, Lori, how do you feel about Luis Rojas, and do you think the fan base agrees with you?
Well, those are always two very different. So I'll start first with Luis Rojas. I love, as you said, I love his pedigree. Obviously, who wouldn't? From the family pedigree, Felipe Alou. But beyond that, the years in the Mets system, the having managed in the World Baseball Classic, in winter ball, and then of course all throughout the Mets system, has absolutely great experience for the job. I thought last season he showed growing pains of a first-year manager, and whether that was in communication skills with the media, and whether that was some in-game decisions, there were growing pains last year. So, but I think there's enough there to the background and his experience that I think it's a fine move to have left him in place and given him an opportunity to grow and develop. If you were starting right now and saying, Mets, go ahead and hire a manager, and it could be anybody, or last season, would he have been the right choice? They were putting a obviously they had a really difficult situation with Carlos Beltran and then needing to pivot on the fly like that. And it made sense to go for somebody, an internal option. I get all of that. But so I think Luis Rojas at this point is a solid choice who will mature and grow into the role. I think they made a smart move in bringing in experienced bench coach who he really has a lot of personal history and comfort with. I think that was really smart. And, so I think he'll improve and get better. In terms of Mets fans, for a manager, you're only as good as your next move. And in about 5 minutes, the season will start. He will make the first move to the bullpen. There will be the first issue, and fans will call in, and they will want him fired. And
this guy's terrible.
And I think Tim hit on it before in terms of the bullpen. Honestly, how fans feel about the manager, I think, correlates generally pretty strongly with how good is the bullpen. And if you give a manager, because when you think of all the in-game decisions, most of it is what are you doing with the bullpen and how are you using them? And when a bullpen is not very good and stinking up the joint, fans are going to be annoyed with the manager as he didn't get the most out of them. He didn't magically make the right decisions. You look awfully smart as a manager when you have a really good bullpen. So the best thing they could probably do for Luis Rojas would be to add one more really good arm to that bullpen before the season starts, and he'll suddenly look a lot smarter, I think, to Mets fans this upcoming season.
Now, Joe, I know how you feel about Luis Rojas, but try to give fans, I guess, a little to continue this question about the manager. I know you dig the guy, and I know that you were definitely on board. I remember reaching out to you and asking you what you thought about him being the manager if the whole Beltran thing fell apart, which it eventually did. Give the fans a little nugget or two about why you think Luis Rojas can be the guy moving forward.
I think Luis Rojas has not only the respect, but I think a lot of the players genuinely like him because he managed a good percentage of them in the minor leagues. And what I like about Luis Rojas is he's a blend of new school and old school. He's got the old school in him, obviously, with his pedigree and his family from Felipe Alou. So he has the old school, but he's also analytically driven too. I mean, he was the quality control coach, which is a lot of, analytics to the manager. So he's a good mix there. And in a sense, he's almost the last of like a dying breed of manager where you go through the minor league system, you start managing in rookie ball and you go up to A ball and you go to double and you basically just go up the chain like a prospect, so to speak, and get a shot to manage in the big leagues. Now they're pulling managers out of broadcast booths and front offices. And it's just like guys getting pulled out of essentially nothing, no experience. And I think it's because baseball as a whole is not valuing the manager like it used to be valued. And do I think Luis is a special World Series winning manager? To Lori's point, a lot of it is the talent on the team. So I'm not 100% sold, but I thought he was obviously the right move when they moved on from Beltran. And frankly, after 60 games, if they got rid of him, I thought that would have been a little bit of a rash decision. So I'm optimistic. I think the players like him. I think they respect him. And, I think it was certainly worth a shot.
Now, Tim, you dealt with Luis directly, and I know that covering the 2020 Mets wasn't exactly normal, as far as having the same kind of interactions with Luis. And to be completely honest, what happened with Mickey and you certainly was something that was, got headlines. I always thought I was going to be the Healy that got yelled at in the clubhouse. I'm sorry if that like picks it a scab, but I mean, everybody's thinking it. So, me, I usually say it.
It's all good.
But, you've had some experience dealing with managers. You have a sense of how they interact. And I think the way they interact with you guys is kind of similar to how they interact with people in general. I've heard lots of great things about Luis, but give us something from your unique perspective of this group in dealing with Luis and why you think either he is or isn't, the manager for the Mets moving forward.
Well, I think he should be, and I'm glad that he is the manager for the Mets moving forward, because when you have a notable prospect, and Rojas was a manager prospect as he climbed through the ranks, as Joe explained, and then give him 2 months, nobody will give a prospect 2 months and dump him if he doesn't wow you. So moving on from Luis Rojas would have been rash and awkward. As far as my experiences with him, having talked to him in 2018 when he was Binghamton's manager, and having talked to him in 2019 when he was the quality control coach for the major league team, and then talked to him last year when he was the big league coach or a big league manager, not exactly the same guy. I think he was a little nervous in his media dealings as a rookie manager. Honestly, it was a lot of the same qualities that we saw in Mickey Callaway in his media dealings, day-to-day stuff, where it was almost like he was afraid to say the wrong thing. And we know that there's a lot of oversight from Mets bosses from the previous regime. But I think the best thing that the Mets can do for Luis Rojas, aside from giving him good players, is just let him be himself. Just don't make him nervous about getting in trouble for saying the wrong thing or revealing too much about an injury or something like that. Rojas's best moments when he was talking to reporters and therefore the public was in those post-game moments when he was critical of a player or a play. He said, this is what the player did, this is what the player should have done, and sometimes he was a little heated about it. And that was him at his best. Other times he was outwardly nervous, I thought. It was true right off the bat in spring training, and I thought this is a little awkward. I hope he gets better. And he got a little better, but I think if the Mets take the reins off of him, take the leash off of him media-wise, then, let him be himself. He's a good talker, personable guy, and I hope to see more of that in 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, just to build on that from a communication standpoint, I think you're exactly right. You talked about those moments when he was talking, being critical. What I'd love to see, I talk about first-year growing pains from a communication standpoint with the media. Smile. He looks so relaxed. Show us that personality. Have a little fun. They win a game. There was a funny play. Whatever it is, lean into your personality because it's there when it's not on camera. But he really did look uncomfortable and nervous in front of the media, and we don't want to minimize it. That is hard. First year New York, a lot of cameras. But anyway, I just think that you're absolutely right, Tim. They need to just tell the guy, get out of your head, be present, relax, smile, and have fun with it. Whether Terry Collins is the, best manager at field general on the field or whatever, those press conferences, there was personality, there was fun, and there are reasons why, certain fans think fondly of him because of that.
Yes, it wouldn't be a state of the Mets if there wasn't some technical difficulty on my end. I think we have to wrap things up here, but just really quickly, obviously 2020. I think just real quickly with Luis Rojas, think about what he was dealing with last year. He was, taking over from Beltran, COVID. I mean, there's so many things that were coming at him. I think a first-year job in New York is always going to be tough for anybody. And when you think about all the other things that he had to deal with, I think that I feel pretty good. I agree with all of you that I feel pretty good about him moving forward. But this is New York. In the honeymoon period will be over very, very soon. As Laurie said, probably with his first wrong bullpen move. But I think in general, I think you guys did a great job. I really want to thank you for spending some time with us today. I think the state of the Mets is pretty good and probably the best it's been in a long time. So, again, I want to thank Keith and Dan and the folks at QBC for having us as part of the state of the Mets here. And to you, Tim, and to you, Joe, and to you, Laurie, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for everybody that was commenting. So I'm going to take everybody off stream. And thank you again.
Thank you,
Keith.
Mark and Keith.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay, let me get rid of this. So the next panel is going to be Black Jersey returning year and A. It's one of our uni panels. It's one of our the uni panel is one of our staples where we're always talking about the state of the Mets jerseys over the years. So what I'm going to do is bring in my buddy John Salazar from the Marvel Movie Marathon podcast. Try to say that 3 times fast, and it's kind of hard, but I'm going to bring him in a few minutes. What I am going to do is, so I can have just like a little 5-minute break, I'm going to play the old Mazzy Awards that we had from a few years ago. I think it was the second QBC. So I'm just going to throw that on for a minute, and just give me 1 minute to cue it up. Boom. Boom. There you guys go. I'm going to pull out for once.
Of the year. Jacob DeGrom strikes out the first 8 batters in a game. Exactly. Bobby Abreu's warm send-off from Met fans. And, Daniel Murphy makes the All-Star team. Yeah, those are our 8 contestants for this one. And the winner is, as voted on by the fans, the moment of the year. Jacob DeGrom strikes out the first 8 batters in a game. Yes. Do we have anyone here dressed like Jacob DeGrom who would like to accept this award? Do we have somebody? Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob DeGrom. Free haircut. Congratulations. Yes. You're beautiful. Thank you. All right. Next, the nominees. Oh, there's a message for you. For the best first impression. The best first impression is voted on by you, the New York Mets fans. Bartolo Colon. Clap, 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 clap. Jacob DeGrom. Getting a lot of love. Curtis Granderson. Dilson Herrera, and the wickedly talented Adele Dazeem. The fans voted the best first impression by a New York Met in 2014 was made by Jacob DeGrom, yeah! Accepting on behalf of Jacob DeGrom, young Jacob DeGrom. You're going to have to make a speech on the next one. The nominations now, and this is clutch, this one. You might want to text your peoples over there, have them come in. The Jersey of the Year. The Jersey of the Year. You ready? We have several nominations because there are several combinations. That was a little Frazier there for a second, wasn't it? All right. We have white home with pinstripes. White home with pinstripes. We have white home without pinstripes. Yes. We have road gray, New York. Road blue, New York. Los Mets, orange. There is no booing in the masses. Stop that. The camo alternate. I told you. I mean, you come out there. I know. Get the organizers wearing one, for God's sakes. The Royal Giants. They both ended up in the World Series, Royals and Giants. We had that first. No? Okay. Mercury Mets? The fans voted, you picked it. The winner is the Jersey of the Year 2014. White with home pinstripes. Pinstripes on a white home jersey. Anybody wearing that one? Would you like to come up and accept your award? Ladies and gentlemen, here she is. Miss Home White with pinstripes. Congratulations on your Mazzy. The nominees now for Mets Player of the Year. Player of the Year. No guessing. Here are your nominees. Bartolo Colon. Lucas Duda. That is 30 home runs. 30 home runs. Jeez. Tough room. Jacob DeGrom. Daniel Murphy. How did Brad Enos get in here? And Zach Wheeler. Those are your official nominees. The fans have voted. You picked it. The winner is Player of the Year, Jacob DeGrom. And wait a minute. Hold on. We have come up and yes. That kid's already gotten 2 Mazzies, so now we're cooking. We're losing some hair, Jacob, but here you go. Actually, a former WWE superstar, some of you may know. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The other Jacob DeGrom. No, we need the hair back. Although yours is quite fetching, too. Finally.
All right, I figured you guys would get a little kick out of that from a few years ago. So I'm going to bring in John Salazar right now. He's very pro black jersey, the return home. I'm not so much. I can deal with it a little bit. And we have a mystery guest coming in a little bit to actually go against John. But I'm going to give John his chance to speak first. So, John, give me the points of what you like about the black jerseys, why you think it should come back. And the floor is yours right now.
Well, first of all, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm John. I'm one of the 3 kids from Brooklyn of the Marvel Movie Marathon podcast. Usually I'm with my co-host, but this time I'm going solo. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, you're good. You're all good. Don't worry about it.
Perfect. All right. So I'm not really a Mets talker, really, as far as like how the team goes, but I am passionate about the uniforms. It is something I'm passionate about. I've since I've been following as a kid. I mean, when I grew up, they were wearing the black jerseys. I had a Mike Piazza poster on my wall. He was donning the black. When I think about going to Shea as a kid, it's them taking the field in black. And I understand, wanting to get back to basics, and that's fine. No one's saying bring the black jersey back permanently. But it made the Mets look cool. Can we get the swagger back? Can we raise morale? If the players want it, give it to them. That's what it comes down to.
All right, and then I know you and a whole bunch of these Yahoos. Wait, no, Yago. It's Yago, not Yahoos. Decided that they wanted to do their own kind of take on a jersey. So
it was for the anniversary of the 2000 National League Championship Mets, and COVID had other plans, so we didn't get to wear these. But for the first time ever, we will be revealing something special that Yago had in store, and you would have seen us all year long. But they are coming. This is the formal release. This is Yago's announcement. If you want to roll the tape.
All right, here it goes, guys. Sorry about that.
That gets my blood pumping. I love that. I by Drea, directed by Rich, edited by Brew, produced by myself, and also you had your touch in it as well. So I thank you for that.
All right. So looks like that other guest is about ready to come in that wanted to go up against you.
Can I just say I've been sweating this out. I don't know who this other guest is. I'm not prepared to see who this is. So this is fun. I don't know who I'm going up against, and I just think about that scene from Old School where Will Ferrell blacks out against the dude from Hardball. So let's see who you got.
This is awesome. I've been teasing John for weeks. I've been driving him crazy for weeks. But the cool thing is we're both wearing the same hat. I'm just wearing the gray version right now. I have it turned backwards, John. But let's cue up the music and the roll for your opponent. Yeah, John, it's me. I figure I'd be the best one to go up against you.
You gave yourself such a cool intro. Jesus.
I know. I'm running the thing. I have to. So
okay.
Here's my problem with the black jerseys. Now,
wait, this isn't wait, can I say this isn't fair because I send you all my opinions on the black jerseys. I message you on Facebook. So you have all my ammo. Okay. All right.
But
go ahead.
You have all my responses to it too, so it's all good. So it's not a bad thing. So now with you guys making the jerseys yourselves, which in theory it's a great concept that you guys did it for the 20th anniversary of the 2000 team, but it looks like a softball jersey.
That's your take on it, that the black jersey looks like a softball jersey?
Yeah, the black jersey always looked like a softball jersey. The other problems I've had with them is it was just a money grab when they first came out. Charlie Samuels turned to the Wilpons and said, "Hey, everybody else is doing black jerseys. Let's do it." Now the Mets could have went in a total different direction and kept pushing their blue, orange, and white colors and their gray roads, and they could have pushed it to the point where that was the jerseys and just made fashion jerseys of the black jerseys, which I'm fine with. The other thing I'm saying right now is the black jersey should not come into the rotation. A lot of people want it back in the rotation. I think for special anniversary games of like big moments, fine. That's what the era was. They can wear it, but I don't want to see them in the rotation.
Now, if you're saying it looks like a softball jersey. Now, let's say they came to you, you're working for the Mets. They want a black concept. What would you have done? Would you have added them, or you just would have told them no?
I don't know if I would have added it. I mean, if I forgot what all the different sketches were, I did see them at one point, and I can't remember what it was because my brain is fried from doing all this stuff over the years, and I have so much different information in my head.
You have so much stuff in your storage unit as well.
Yeah, that too. Some black jerseys too.
Yeah.
But I really think that as long as it does not happen in the rotation, where it sounds like people want them back all the time, and that shouldn't be a thing. Maybe once a month.
Right.
Maybe,
that's what I'm saying. That's the compromise I want. At least one Friday night game a month. We're not asking for it multiple times a homestand. It's the third jersey. Like the Mets, do the Mets have a third jersey right now? Are they still supposed to be wearing the blue one?
Yeah, it's the blue jerseys.
Okay. I do like the blue. I like the blue on the road better, but
the blue and the blue on the road better. The black jersey. So then, do you change up the "Let's Go Mets" song, add black into it?
We're not trying to erase the history. It's just the black jerseys are a part of our history too. They won the 2000 pennant with wearing those jerseys. They 2006 wearing those jerseys. John Franco broke the save record for lefties wearing the black jersey. It's a part of our history. It's ingrained in the Mets.
But my question is, what do they win World Series in?
And right. Well, that was 69, 86. 86 they wore the pinstripes, and they paid homage to that team in 2016 wearing the racing stripe, and that was cool. That was like every Saturday game or every Saturday day game that year. That I felt like added to that team. Unfortunately, that team, lost in the wild card game, but it was a fun run. And when I think about, I have still warm memories about that team. And when I think about that team, I think about the racing stripe because they had so many great moments right in that racing stripe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, how old were you in 2000?
10.
So 10, of course. So 10 years old, that's going to be your sweet spot. That's why you like the black jerseys. When I was 10 years old, it was the racing stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you got to have that in 2016 when they wore that, or they wore it on the 86th anniversary game. Yeah, I in 2012. Well, the Mets were still wearing black in 2012, and John Franco Hall of Fame game. I was trying to look up pictures of it. It's a shame that I can't find any pictures of that game. But they wore the black. They had the Kid Carter patch on the chest because they already had the 50th Mets. That's. But they wore that in respect to John Franco because in his career, that's what he wore most.
Yeah, and that's fine. And that was the 13 years or the 12 years of 60 years that it's like a sliver of the main history. So I think it should only be brought back on special big games or like the retiring, numbers from players from that year or honoring players from that year. And maybe once or twice a year.
I get that someone would argue if you're going to honor a Met, it should be in the pinstripes. But this team abandoned the pinstripes for damn near 20 years. It was the Snow Whites you saw the most.
They abandoned the pinstripes, but they didn't. So they didn't really abandon it. You know what it was? That there was a lot of people behind the scenes that didn't like it. And there were people.
Why? That's insane to me.
It was just the way the culture of the organization was, and then they saw the black jerseys were making money. But the fashion jerseys that were black jerseys made more money than they did with the authentics.
Probably better priced.
Yeah.
Listen, I worked in retail. I worked in sports retail. I worked at Lids, Models. I worked at Paragon Sports. The sad thing is Mets merch doesn't sell. That's what I've been told by every general manager I had in the 4 years I worked in sports retail. I had to fight every time to try to get the Mets stuff pushed to the front, and it wouldn't sell, unfortunately. This city, the Mets don't own the town like they should. And you do any poll, and the Yankees fans, they run Queens. It's sad. It's hard to argue about a jersey when the team isn't winning. If the team's winning, and if they want to win while wearing the black jerseys, then that comes part of the identity, and then it sells. But they got to win first.
Exactly.
Jerseys comes after.
Exactly. So at least we can agree on the fact that the jersey should be maybe used once or twice a year, and that's about it.
I'm not saying once or twice a year. How many months are there in a season? 5, 6? I'm once a month at a homestand, Friday night game. Get that raucous crowd in there. Party atmosphere. Has been a long week. I want to watch the Mets play the Braves at night. And Pete Alonso, Steve Cohen, because it's not black. Who's fake Uncle Steve? Anyway, I lost my train of thought. God damn you, fake Uncle Steve. But okay, let me change train of thought. I don't like the fact that just because they wore the black jersey, that black had to bleed into all the other jersey stuff. The pinstripes had the drop shadow, hated it. The Snow Whites had the drop shadow, hated it. Rhodes had the drop shadow, hated it. Eventually, they had those cream colored jerseys with the drop shadow, which is like an oxymoron. You're going to do a throwback, but throw in the black drop shadow. That is probably the worst jersey the Mets have ever had. So I don't like that black bled into everything else. The black hat with the blue brim, that to me is like the dorkiest Met hat. That blue brim, it just clashes with the black. It looks purple. It doesn't work. So if you're gonna do black, I say even better, go all black. Wear the black top with the black pants. Let's do it. Jerseys are whack.
Friday night games once or twice a month. I could deal with black jerseys. My problem with them is that they seem to wear them all the time before. So I grew to hate them. Same with the black caps.
Oh, the all black cap is so nice though.
The
3
all
colors.
The all black cap was a lot better than the hybrid cap. The only thing is when you do get to the jerseys and you design a jersey, and you don't have like the white outline for it, take away one of the three colors. What happens to the design? It fades away almost like the player's jersey.
Right. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it being tricolor. I mean, okay, so you said it looks like a softball jersey. I don't see it that way. I just see the white alternate that the Mets had turn black. That's all I see. It's a Mets jersey to me. It has the blue piping. There's nothing really missing from it. I think it pops. And like I said, like memories I had at Shea, it changed their persona. And if Pete Alonso wants it, if Lindor wants it, it should be up to the players. Now, them wearing it all the time, like I think at one point one season, they were wearing the black jersey that said Mets on it on the road. Someone had to get fired. That was a mess. But I think this is an even more popular opinion. The black road that says New York on the front, I think that's even better than the home black jersey. That to me, that jersey is better than the gray roads. But what I think would be cool if we're gonna do once a year, twice a year, I think it would be cool if you take that jersey, the road black that says New York, instead have it say Nueva York, and they play the Marlins on like a Latino night once or twice a year. I think that would be incredible. I mean, I can get Teza to sign off on that. I can get Drew to sign off on that. I can get Rodolfo to sign off on that. The Los Mets orange jerseys. Oh, jeez.
With the Los Mets was that was a lazy design that they should have just put Nueva York on it. Even if they were playing at home, I'm all for that.
Nueva York to wear New York, say it New York at home.
Wear 3 on the road and 3 at home. You could do it.
That doesn't really make much sense though. Wearing the city name at home.
Why not? It makes no sense wearing black jerseys.
I know that made no sense wearing the Mets home jersey on the road. That frustrated the absolute hell out of me. But like I ended up texting Darren to get his opinion on this. And I asked him if his black merch is more popular. And he said that the plain blue and orange, it's more popular than the plain blue and orange because black is much easier to match with. And it's very true. Well, you can match black with anything. And when it comes to sneakers, I mean, you're a part of my Mets sneakerhead group, I think. Like at least my friends that I'm passionate about this with, we love to rock our sneakers at the game. Opening day is pretty much Mets sneaker con. And finding just a plain blue and orange style, finding something with some black in it. So I think that more blue and orange and black sneakers go with the black than you would find vice versa. Nueva York. Yeah, I knew I knew Teza would like that. Teza, I tried to mock it up for you, man. I had this idea last night. I'm gonna get Drew to design something. Drew's really good at that. He texted me Nueva York.
All right,
but I think that would be fuego. I think that's a good idea, and I think Darren should even jump on that if he wants to sell it. I think that'd be that. I would wear that shirt, dude. Darren, this is a free idea, bro. Free idea. Nueva York jersey T-shirt, black, sick. Do it. Puerto Rico flag on the sleeve for Lindor. I'm all about it.
Well, what about the black Mercury Mets jersey?
So, I mean, the Mercury Mets is like the name's kind of a joke. So what? The Yankees took over New York. We had to move it to another planet. You love that jersey, don't you?
I just love the absurdity of it, and I kind of feel like when they wore the black Mercury Mets, they were really the reason why part of the black jersey got brought into the Mets universe.
You think so? That was because of that? They only wore that jersey once. That was one game, right?
It was one game, but it was talked about how we Rose hated it. It became a thing. So, I actually have 2 of them. I have a Piazza and an Izzy jersey, but I also have
because his name is so freaking long, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I also have like 16 other of the turn ahead the clock jerseys too, from all different teams.
Yeah. I think about my jersey collection, how sad it is, but I think there was a year, I tried to look this up. I think it was 08 or 09. The Mets had like 12 different combinations of jerseys. Black shirt, black socks, and then they were the same thing with the blue shirt, blue socks, and it was a mess. You didn't know what they were going to wear. And I think it had to do with the pitcher. I don't know, with Santana. I think Santana preferred the jersey he actually pitched a perfect game in. But it's just I understand the want of simplicity. But just so what would be 1, 2, and 3? What would be the lineup 1, 2, and 3? Black being the third one.
What do you mean of the
like
jersey?
What would be the second jersey? The first one's the pinstripes, and then what's the second jersey? Do they bring the Snow Whites back?
No, don't bring them back. Don't
You
bring
hate
anything back.
Do you not like the Snow Whites?
If you're gonna bring them back with no name on back.
They only did that 1 year though.
Well,
That was 99.
Right, with the ice cream vendor hat.
Darren made a hat like that. It's actually pretty cool. I don't know. Fitteds are kind of out of style. I have like 300 fitteds, and I don't wear any of them.
Yeah, I think it's time to have a jersey and hat sale.
What, for us to sell our stuff?
Yeah, sell our stuff. We could probably make a fortune.
I could have a hat closet. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I have a hat storage room.
Can we compromise that, like you said, special events, but you don't want it brought back once a month? Why is once a month so bad?
All right, if they bring it back just once a month and it doesn't bleed into the rotation at all, that's fine. But as soon as it bleeds into the rotation, where they start wearing it all the time,
like this is a different era. I don't think they would make the same mistake again.
You never know, because remember, the Patriots could choose what the jersey that they wanted to wear.
Right. But I mean, you're underestimating the amount of fans that grew up in the 90s and 2000s. And it's true, it did bleed into the 2010s a bit. But I have friends that aren't even Mets fans, and they're like, what happened? How come the Mets don't wear black anymore? Like, the Mets lost their cool. Like, they lost a part of it.
Also, if you're going to say that, it's also the Yankee fans that were born after 96 that think they always won.
Yeah. They were crap for so long.
Yeah, it's what you got, what you came into, it's what you were born into, your sweet spot, So
yeah, let me break your brain a little bit. I don't remember the Mets before them wearing black jerseys. I became a fan vaguely around 98. So I don't even remember them not wearing the black.
Well, that's because of your age. You're 10 years old and you don't really have anything before that. When the Mets won the World Series, I was 10 years old, and that's when really became a Mets fan. And
you lucky bastard, you got to see them win. You son of a bitch.
Hey,
I never got that.
I saw the Rangers win too. So,
oh right.
Yeah. So I think we've totally talked the hell out of this. I'll acquiesce a little bit, and I say one time a month.
Thank you for the compromise, because I'm not on Twitter. Twitter is a cesspool. Everyone hates each other on Twitter. I'm not going to debate someone about this on Twitter, because I'm just not gonna want to go back on Twitter. So I'm glad that we can have a face-to-face, a heart-to-heart about this, and come up with a compromise once a month, Friday nights, or I don't know why I say Friday nights. I just think Friday night
because you don't want it during the day games because it's too hot.
That's true. Even though New York weather is so trash right now.
Yeah,
they're gonna play in cold for at least 2.5 months. We're gonna start off cold.
I'm gonna throw one other thing into you. They can have it once a month, on a Friday, but they can also have, for the special anniversaries, like if there's something going on, and for the players from 98 to 220.
Is there another player from that era that can even get inducted or retired or anything like that? Because they're starting to retire more numbers now because they want to set the trail for right. So that's why Guzman's number is getting retired.
You don't actually have to have a retired number. There's also the Mets Hall of Fame where they can go.
Of course. Well, I'm thinking of that era. Who else from that era? We're going to put Benny Agbayani in there. Jay Payton. I don't know. Robbie.
Well, into the the Hall of Fame, you can put a Wagner in. You could put a Billy Wagner.
Oh, Wagner did wear black a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wagner. How did Wagner do in the Hall of Fame voting? Was he like third on the list under that was his freaking name, Bloody Sock Guy. Yeah.
Oh, here's a great one for the Hall of Fame.
Oh yes, please, Jesus. Let me tell a Fonzie story real quick. So, growing up, a Mets fan, in Queens, and seeing a Latino player, like, oh wow, look at this guy. He's from Venezuela. We're at Shea.
Well, I guess that just
Venezuela. This is damn near disrespectful.
Are you breaking up, John?
Blasting all the time. It was around the time Pedro got there. Oh, am I? I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I am.
Start over that story really quick. Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is good now. That was weird. No, I'm just saying quick. Fonzie would come up to bat and the organist would play the Mexican hat dance. I'm like, he's from Venezuela. This makes no sense. But no, I love Fonzie, and I wish he had a job in the Mets organization still. He was at QBC, the last QBC. I got to ask him a question, and it was like a highlight for me. He was one of my heroes growing up.
Yeah, he was a great guy to talk to too. Had a great time talking to him at the QBC.
So friendly.
Very friendly. Let me just see. All right, John. I thank you. I think we've made an agreement.
We beat this horse to death. So, totally. Oh, let me just put this out there. In Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, in his bedroom, he has a Mets cap on the shelf, and it is the Black Mets hat. And he also has a poster with the Black Mets logo. So I guess it's because of age, but when he was going to City, because I don't think he was even old enough to be going to Shea, the Mets were wearing black. And I hope we get a flashback of him and his Uncle Ben, played by Toby Maguire, them at City Field watching the Mets game, and the Mets are wearing black. So there's your little dose of Marvel from myself.
All right.
Well, watch WandaVision. Don't tell me episode 1 and 2 was boring. Episode 3, 4, and 5 explain everything. Don't give up on that show. Check it out. Things are changing, and you don't want to miss this. And we'll be coming out with a recap episode very soon. We're all moving. Me, Andrew, Miles, we're all moving. We're all doing. I'm coming here live from my shop right now in Williamsburg. My locksmith shop, also recording studio. We record here as well. So 25 Bushwick Avenue. If you want a car key cutting program, give me a call.
Wow, this guy just
I have a lot of stuff to plug.
All plugging. All right, thank you, John. I'm going to take you off right now.
Thank you, Keith. Man, this was a pleasure. Thank you for bringing me into the QBC family, and hope to be back soon. God bless.
All right, thank you, buddy. So in a few minutes, we're going to have the baseball night, S&Y's baseball night New York team, Doug Williams, Sal Licata, Jim Duquette, and Andy Martino. Just waiting for everybody to pop in right now. Sorry that I'm a little slow right now because I had to deal with actually mod and being a host and a guest. So I'm going to give this a couple seconds. I'm going to throw a quick little video up for a second just to keep you guys all entertained while we're doing our thing. So just give me 1 second. Here's Art Shamsky from a
toes. But when Seaver would pitch, you just had to be ready for the ball at any time because you knew that he was going to be around the plate, and he was just a terrific competitor.
Right. It would seem from just watching on TV in those days that Gil Hodges had a lot of impact on that team, and we've certainly heard you guys talk about it over the years. Okay, can you just describe a little bit the difference it made when Gil came along into your life and how he helped mold that team.
Well, I came the same time Gil did. That spring training in 1968 was my first year, along with Tommy Agee, myself, Gil was the manager, and a couple other guys. Not sure right off the top of my head, but I remember the first day of spring training, and I had just come over from the Cincinnati Reds. And the very first day we got together, Gil had a meeting, and he just said, I want you guys to know that we will not be the same New York Mets as you've been in the last few years. So right off the bat told me that he was not going to put up with the kind of play that the Mets were known for in their history, being the lovable losers. It's not to say that we didn't play bad. We finished ninth, half game out of last place. In '68, that was still one division in the National League and one division in the American League. But Gil was a very, very stern disciplinarian, very fair manager. He wasn't the kind of guy that would slap you on the back so much when you did something well, and wasn't the kind of guy that would embarrass you or chastise you in front of anybody when you didn't, when he wasn't happy with you. He always took you aside and talked to you. But he was the kind of guy that everybody, I think, enjoyed playing for him. Now, mind you, when he came over, he started platooning guys and was well known in '69 for platooning in 5 positions. And I must tell you, nobody liked that situation, particularly myself and Swoboda in right field, Clendenin and Cranepool at first base, and Boswell and Weiss, and then Charles and Garrett, and then sometimes Grody and J.C. Martin. But the thing about it was, it worked. And Gil was able to get the most out of his players, and I think that's a real tribute to his style of managing, where he was able to make that guy at the end of the bench, the 25th player on the team, feel like he was part of the team. And I think that's really about managing. Managing is being able to deal with the different personalities, and Gil was able to do that. And to his credit, he got the most out of everybody that was on those teams, even in '68 when we didn't play that well, but particularly in '69. And I do believe the Mets would have won more World Series if Gil would have been alive to be able to be part of that organization. But Gil was a very stern disciplinarian, and I think everybody respected him for that toughness. And
all right, everybody. So I'm going to start bringing in the SNY TV's Baseball Night in New York staff crew. I'm getting tired. Sorry about stumbling over my own stuff. But all right, here comes Doug Williams.
Hey,
Sal
Keith.
Licata. Hey, Doug.
What's up, Keith?
Hey, Sal. Love the figures behind you.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
No problem. Here's Jim Duquette, and we're bringing in Andy Martino also.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, guys. So I just wanted to thank all you guys for coming and spending your time on a Saturday doing this. We always love having you guys. I need a break from talking for a few minutes. I'm going to leave it to the professionals. So thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the Baseball Night in New York. And I'm going to disappear for a second. I'm going to be lurking in the background, but this is all you guys. My one question, do you want comments live, or do you want to hold them off to the end? Like if any questions or anything, or?
I think I'm going to, as we go along, if we have a break in our conversation or something, I'll defer to either you or Michael Flynn, and we'll get comments as they come on. So they don't need to be live because we obviously have a lot to talk about, but we'll get to them as they come in the show.
What are you guys talking about? There was nothing going on this offseason,
right.
Nothing at all. All right, so I'm going to leave it to you guys. I'm out. I'll see you in a little bit.
Keith, thank you. Thanks again to Keith and Dan for this because this is as good as it gets for 2020 and 2021. We wish we were talking to all of you that are watching in person. There's nothing more fun, especially for our show. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we do every day, but it was special to be able to do it in front of real, live, actual Mets fans. It's a bummer we can't be doing that today, but we're thrilled to be doing this. And, you know, we had all 4 of you were on Baseball Night in New York last night, which I may say was a fairly epic program. Like I think we have like special shows every now and then. Last night was a particularly good one.
Special, all right.
Yeah, I started the show by calling Andy Martino Annie Martino, which was an alter ego that I actually think set the show in motion.
It set the tone.
Yeah, it set the tone for the rest of the show. Sal had an all-time rant, which is on Twitter if you haven't seen it, about just how many times it came up in lineup card, how many times he was checking Twitter during the Trevor Bauer insanity.
Yeah, I don't think I was alone, by the way, either with that. I mean, we're all in the same boat, which is why it was relatable. It was infuriating.
I was about to say that, like, there was a group of us, and I'm sure all of our viewers were included, that was in this like foxhole yesterday of, okay, which caps are up on the Bauer website right now for auction that he's signed? What does that potentially mean? It was nuts. So let's start with Bauer, obviously. And in case you're not aware, so Andy Martino is MLB insider for SNY. He's on the show 2 or 3 times a week, but he does everything at the network. Jim Duquette's former general manager of the New York Mets. He's one of our baseball analysts as well. He does some satellite radio stuff for MLB network satellite radio. You can listen to him in the mornings. Sal Licata's on WFAN. He's on SNY. He is a truly passionate Mets fan. That's why we love having him on the show, because he helps bring to life some of what you guys are thinking at home that you probably don't see a lot of representation of on television. Let's start with Bauer. So, Andy, do you think yesterday tells the story of why he chose the Dodgers, or does it go back much further than that? Like, how far back does the story go in terms of your reporting about why he ended up in LA?
That's a good, interesting way to think about it, actually. I would start by echoing what you said, Doug, to the people out there watching. It's so weird because it's like we don't see you or feel you, or like, I'm trusting someone's watching. I don't see any metrics on that. Hopefully there's plenty of you out there, but it was so fun a couple of years ago to get in that space with everybody and interact and just hear, it's actually very replenishing for me. It's like why I do this, meeting the audience. It's like I'm reporting on stuff and like trying to figure out what's going on. And then to see people who are, it happens less than you would think, to see people who are really passionate about the team in the way that the people who go to QBC are, because I'm talking to sources and stuff. It's a different world. So it's cool to interact with the audience. I hope we can do it again next year. Anyway.
Me too.
Bauer to the Dodgers. It's interesting because the way it worked out, you do wonder if he ever would have come to the Mets, or if the Mets would have really had to overpay. The Mets offered $105 million, put on a full court press. I can tell you that part of their pitch, and I haven't reported this, so this is exclusive to you guys, like it's a little nugget, like the Mets pitch to Bauer was partly, if you go to the Dodgers, they just won. They've got Kershaw. You go there, you can be just another guy. They didn't say this, but it's almost like Durant going to Golden State. It's like, yeah, it'll be great. You guys will be great. But if you come to the Mets and win a World Series for the first time since 1986 and do it at the top of the rotation with Jacob deGrom, you could be an icon. And I think the Dodgers were more like, you could live in Beverly Hills and the New York media won't be there. and he's from California. And ultimately, we don't know exactly why he was receptive to the Dodger pitch, but the Mets offered more money. They offered the chance to be on this stage that was unique to what you can do as a Dodger. And, you have to assume that Bauer didn't want it. You have to assume, you can draw your own conclusions, and I don't want to be quoted as saying as to why he didn't want it. But I think that I know a lot of people that are pretty tough online and maybe not so much in person.
Yeah, that's a common thing. So, Jim, how common is that in a pitch to a player that's like, this is what you could be. If you succeed here, this is what you build up this idea in their head. Is that part of what you talk about when you're trying to woo a free agent to your team?
I think there's a lot of factors with it. It's a good question. Like we did a full-on recruiting video, and when we were there, and it resonated with Pedro, and it resonated with Beltran, it resonated with Mike Cameron. Didn't resonate with Carlos Delgado quite as much, but of course, Omar ends up trading for Delgado later. So it really depends. You have to try to figure that's what part of this recruiting process is all about. Is trying to find out what's important to the player, and then creating your pitch around that. So we know that there's an analytics portion to that for Trevor Bauer. We know there's a social media aspect to it. There's a whole scrutiny level that I think comes with what he what he's done in the past. I'm not totally convinced that it would have been a good fit for him in New York. I think there is much more of a potential problem. And I'm not gonna throw out, potential guys that have failed in New York. I don't want to go take it that far because it's a moot point. But I don't think it was going to be as good of a fit, and it would have kept me up at night if I was the general manager, wondering, oh man, what is he posting on his social media site? Do I have to sleep with one eye open on his social media page? That is never a good thing, in my opinion. So I think that they're in a lot of ways, this team is good enough without Bauer. They can make a trade later to improve it. That's number one. And by the way, Carlos Carrasco is a very good pitcher that doesn't get mentioned all that much. And two, Trevor Bauer, it's a mixed bag depending on who you speak to, on whether they thought he was a good teammate or not, whether he was a distraction or not. And I'm not sure I want to take my chances with that type of guy with that kind of money.
Okay, so Sal, just like last night on Baseball Night in New York, which I should say, by the way, weeknight 6 o'clock on SNY, in case you don't already watch. I saved you for last because I know people are on here just to hear your opinion. But what I find interesting, the nuance of your opinion isn't like that you've been full court press. I love Trevor Bauer for the Mets. He's going to be great if they sign him. It's like I've been waiting a long time for the Mets to be the team that gets the big name free agents. You have not had that for some years. You were looking forward to it this offseason because there were a lot of free agents that fit Mets needs. Bauer was the last one. They didn't get him. So is your passion and anger Bauer specific? Or is it looking back on an offseason that you think is mostly missed opportunities?
I think it's more the latter there. A couple of things. First, with Bauer, as you said, it got to a point where Bauer was the last man standing, and I was like, all right, well, other people want him. He's the last guy that could be a difference maker. Might as well go all in. At this point, it's Bauer or bust. Turned out to be bust. The anger and frustration comes from the way that Bauer played the Mets. That ticks me off because for 10 years or so, the Mets didn't have the finances to be in the conversation with the top free agents. Now, their fan base gets their hope, not to mention the fake report by Nightingale, which gets their hopes up. So you have the fan base who's starved, right, for the top free agent. Their team is finally in on everybody. They didn't get Real Muto. They didn't get Springer. You know who they didn't get? Bauer's the last one left. Down to 2. They were flirting. Alderson likes Bauer. Bauer's playing back and forth. The report comes out. He's coming to the Mets. You start getting that hope up again and the excitement. Forget about whether you think he's going to be good or not. There's the excitement there. And it all turns out that he just wanted to go home and play for the Dodgers. And the Mets offered him more money, and he turned that down. So now the Met fan is losing out on free agents, not because they don't have enough money, because this guy was playing them because he wanted to jack up the price to go home. So that's where the anger and frustration comes with Bauer. From a guy who, you're right, Doug, I never wanted. My mantra this offseason before Bauer or bust was it's Springer who the Mets offseason hinges on the acquisition of George Springer, a guy who was a perfect fit for what I thought that they needed, a legit center fielder, an impact bat who's proven in the postseason that they needed that, a right-handed bat to boot. Once they lost out on him, I knew this offseason wasn't going to be as exciting as I had hoped. And there is an element to just the excitement level. Now that we're a day old here with the Bauer stuff, the Mets aren't a bad team. And I never said that. I never said they weren't going to be a team that could compete for a postseason spot. But to get to that next level, when you look at what the Yankees do, what the Dodgers do, that's what the Met fans deserve. That's what I want. My expectations are raised. So are the owners, by the way. He said it himself. He has the highest of expectations. You know what? He's right. Well, so do I. You want to root for a team like the Pirates, go root for them. But we're in New York City here. The expectations should be through the roof to where the Yankees are. That's where it comes from, where there were so many names out there. And yeah, the Mets upgraded, and they got one of the best players, if not the best player available in Lindor. To me, it still wasn't enough. They could have done more. They needed more. And unfortunately, they didn't get it.
By the way, quick note just to you guys. First of all, Keith and Dan, this technology is great. I like being able to talk this seamlessly and be able to see the questions, which I'm about to read this well, is really cool. So to our panelists, like the good old days, if you disagree or you want to jump in after, don't wait for me. Just do it, because I think that there's less of a delay than usual. So this is a question from Joseph Morgan. Does Justin Turner, Trevor Rosenthal, Taijuan Walker, or James Paxton and JBJ make better sense for the Mets at the same annual cost as Bauer? Jim, in your answer a second ago, did you say that you think the Mets can still make a trade? Like, what do you think that they're still going to be active on the trade market, or do you think they're looking at that list of remaining free agents more closely?
I think they're looking at the free agents mostly. I think that they would like to add more pitching. I think they also, at least from what I was told, they're having conversation, dialogue on the center field market with JBJ. And so, I think that's their next course in pitching. It could be starter or reliever. Doesn't matter. It could be one of each, any combination. There's a lot of trade possibilities at the moment that I can tell. I know that there was a lot of rumors around Sonny Gray earlier. I know Sonny Gray didn't pitch well with the Yankees. I wouldn't be as concerned about him, but I don't think he's available. So I think it's kind of there's no need to really bring that up at this point. It seems like he's staying in Cincinnati. So I can't find another pitcher that you can get via trade, nor can I find a center fielder. So it seems right now, and I know Andy's been monitoring this closely also, it's really, all right, who is available of the starting pitchers? Are they in on Rizzi, Taijuan Walker, James Paxton? Doesn't sound like it, but I wouldn't rule out, one of those, or they could pivot and go back to one of them, or any of the other starting pitchers that are available. Bullpen-wise, Rosenthal certainly fits. There's Shane Green, there's others, Mark Melancon, but Rosenthal is the best of that bunch. And even a guy like Justin Turner is available. It doesn't seem like, though, that's the option that the Mets are going to take. It seems like the Dodgers or the Brewers are in on Justin Turner.
Yeah, I would add to that, Joseph. I was thinking about when Jim was talking, I was thinking about the aspect of your question that was the same annual cost as Bauer. So let's say Bauer's 40. I think these players combined would be significantly more than 40 million. I think Jackie Bradley Jr. is expensive. Like, we're talking, Jim, well over 50 million, right? What they're looking for. I don't know if he's going to get it, but in total, right, not annually. Yeah. So 15 to 20 a year on Bradley, Turner, up over 10, I would think. Paxton, I heard Paxton was looking for like 15 or so on his own. I don't know if he's going to get it. He did a showcase. Unfortunately, not a lot of interest came out of that. So you worry about the medicals for a guy who could be great. But going through that, my point is that unfortunately, that's way too much. All of those guys or types of guys like that to compare to Bauer. And what I hear is that the Mets are willing to go over the luxury tax for Bauer, but now that Bauer is off the table, they probably don't want to go with the luxury tax just like randomly anyway. It was like more about Bauer on that front. But not to be too dire about it, I completely agree with Jim. They're going to add a pitcher. Jake Arrieta was not on your list, but that's someone who I'm told that they have direct interest in more so than Paxton, Walker, or Rizzi, who Jim mentioned. And Rosenthal doesn't make a lot of sense for them. Turner, that was a bad divorce with the Mets. That's the thing. They kind of, not only did they foolishly non-tender him when he was about to become a star, but they kind of trashed him anonymously on the way out. And Turner did not, as one would imagine, appreciate that very much.
I'm trying to. Yeah, go ahead, Sal.
Sorry, none of those players. I mean, come on now. And this is where, and I actually like from the Mets' perspective that there's, okay, well, we missed out on the big fish in Bauer. I'm not wasting it here just to spend money. It's enough of the quantity instead of quality. I want the quality. I don't want this quantity. And I'm not paying Jackie Bradley Jr. as badly as I want a defensive center fielder, because Nemo's not a center fielder. I'm not paying Jackie Bradley Jr. 15 to 20 million bucks a year because he's not worth it. I'm not looking to be a bookkeeper here with the Mets where people are saying, oh, you can't get Springer or you can't get Bauer because then you can't sign or extend Conforto or Lindor. No, I'm not worried about that, but I am worried about wasting money on subpar players. James Paxton, the reason why starting rotations need depth around Major League Baseball? Because of guys like James Paxton, because he can't stay healthy and take his starts every fifth day. So because of guys like him, that's why everybody's always talking about, oh, you need rotation depth and you need depth in that starting rotation in case somebody gets hurt. That's what Paxton is. Now, I like the upside there because there's potential. That's what lures you in thinking, oh, man, if he ever could stay healthy, he could be a dominant guy at a cheap price. But I want a guy who I know is going to be healthy every fifth day and can eat innings more so than a guy with that upside. I want a known commodity that could fill out the rotation. So None of those guys, even Justin Turner, all right, he's a nice player, and he did great with the Dodgers after he left the Mets. He's older. He's on the decline. Plus, as Andy said, the way that it was, I'm not going back down the Justin Turner road again. I think the Mets had their big moves to make. Unfortunately, they only ended up with, a couple of the guys, McCann and Lindor and Carrasco were the big ones. And you know what? See what happens at the trade deadline.
Jim, wasn't it you last night who said that Paxton might be interesting because it was you or Recker that basically you're getting Syndergaard and Paxton, similar pitchers from opposite sides. And if you're getting half of a season from Syndergaard, right, and you can only rely on 150 innings at most from Paxton, that you kind of have one dominant pitcher between the two.
That's the way I viewed it. Paxton, has never thrown 30 starts, and I think the max he's thrown is 26. When he's healthy, the stuff is electric. But you can't count on him for more than 10 or 15 starts. And Syndergaard's the same thing. You can't expect him to pitch more than 10 or 15 times as well. So I think if it was worked out that way, I think it would be really interesting to see both of those guys in the same rotation at some point, or at least maybe take up one roster spot in those number of innings. Now, I checked in after the show to see if the Mets were in on Paxton, and it did not seem like they had any conversation regarding James Paxton. To Andy's point, there had been more talk about Arrieta. And so, it didn't seem like at this point that Paxton was going to be a viable option. Now, having said all that, when you're all in on Bauer, as they were, and at the end, there's always a fallout from that. And you could go back and double back on some of those other guys that you basically told them, hey, we'll pass on, or hey, we're not interested now, or whatever. You can go back and see what the price tag is on that. So I think that's the next part of this with the Mets and their front office, is to go back and look and see who's still available, who is realistically has a chance for us to sign, what's that look like cost wise, and then decide if that makes sense to bring them in or go to spring training with the roster as is.
Before I get to the question from fake Uncle Steve, which I'm just going to assume is the real Uncle Steve.
It's a good name for a burner.
I keep trying to remind myself that these off-season storylines where we're like, well, if the Mets get Jackie Bradley Jr., where's Brandon Nimmo going to play? Like, those figure themselves out. We're always panicking about that in January and February, and then spring training starts and somebody has a hamstring problem, and you're like, well, it's good the Mets have so-and-so. It just always ends up helping out. And so if the Mets do get JBJ, I'm not worried about Nimmo. I think they find him at bats, and that's what he needs at bats. He does not need to play in center field. At least that's my opinion. All right. So it's, as you see at the bottom of your screen, do you think the Mets would have gone higher on Real Muto if they knew they would not get Springer or Bauer? The one point that I would make here, and we had Joe DeMeo earlier on the QBC panel, and he made the point when Real Muto signed with the Phillies at the end of the day, that if the Mets had stayed in on him, that price would have been higher, especially early. They would have been able to wait the Mets out because they know that the Mets have infinite resources. It ended up being one obvious team for Real Muto, and he still got a lot of money. So, Andy, how do you think they view the McCann signing now? How do you think Sandy feels about it now?
Good about it. They were never in on Real Muto. I mean, the issue was price, because it was like $150 million or more back in November or whenever they signed. It's all, I don't know. I've been in my house for 10 months. And I think it was November. It's all blending together. But at that time, the issue with Real Muto was price, but it was also a pace of the free agency. Real Muto's people made it clear that he wasn't going to sign soon. He was really going to wait the market and see how it went. And the Mets are just like, yeah, we don't like you enough to hold up our offseason on this. Sorry. And especially, I think being a catcher really didn't help. It was like, if you're going to give big money to a 30 or 31-year-old, he's 30, Springer's 31, you'd rather give it to an outfielder than a catcher at that age, a long-term deal. They real hesitation between investing that much in a catcher, and one who has had some issues with his hips last year, which is a little bit worrisome. So it was never going to be a match. The Mets and Real Muto was a Brody era thing. Brody really liked the player. Sandy era Mets, it wasn't going to happen. I mean, it might have happened at the deal he got. I think it was 115 with significant deferrals Not a great contract for Real Muto. He didn't do particularly well in free agency, and that might have worked for the Mets, but they were very happy to just like get James McCann, who they like, and then move on. And it enabled them to turn their attention toward the Lindor trade, which I still contend was the big splash that they needed to make this offseason. When people talk about I hear what you're saying, Sal, and I don't want to dismiss it because you're coming from fan emotion place, and I get that. But my perspective is that the big fish were the three big free agents, Springer, Real Muto, and Bauer, and Lindor, the big trade guy. And I feel like those were the four big stars, and you should get one of them, and they got one of them. And I think that just dealing with catcher real quick allowed them to do Lindor.
Well, hold on one second here before I answer with the catcher situation. Do you think, because it's not just a fan's perspective, do you think the Mets are as good as the Dodgers or the Yankees, for example?
Not just yet, but remember, it took the Dodgers. Well, hold on, though. It took the Dodgers 7 years, I think, of the new ownership to win a World Series. I think in year one of what Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson are doing, it's been a tremendous offseason where they added high-end talent, one huge star, a really good pitcher in Carrasco, Trevor May. I mean, it's been a great offseason to me for the Mets, and they've got themselves in the conversation at the top tier of the National League. And then, maybe you don't win a World Series for 7 years, and it's still very successful.
It's year one for them. It's year 41 for me and other fans.
That's why I brought you up and couched it, and I get there's emotion here. I do.
But it's not just that. I just wanted them. And look, here's the other thing. The Mets themselves, Cohen, Alderson, they have said it. They know they're more than one piece away. So they can say that it's going to take time.
But
and
by the way, 5 pieces.
Right. By the way, well, I mean, they still know that obviously they know they need more. They were in on Springer. They just didn't want to go the extra year. They wanted to get Bauer. They offered him the most money. So it's not just me saying, crazy fan, I want more. They obviously knew, that the fan base wants more.
No one's called you crazy fan today except for yourself. I just want to make sure. I was very respectful.
They know the fans wanted more, and B, they know that they needed more. Now, to be positive for a second, and I'm with you. I don't think that they're an awful team. I think that they're going to be a solid team. They should legitimately contend for a playoff spot. My expectations are World Series, and obviously I don't think they're there yet, but I love the McCann signing. I think McCann's going to be the better player. If you project the next 3-4 years, I think McCann will be the better. And I used to love Real Muto. I think McCann's going to be the better player and a better fit for this team. I think he's going to handle the staff better. I like his makeup. I think it's going to be successful in New York. All I wanted was a star defensive catcher. I think they're getting that with McCann. The offense, whatever you get from him, I think will be a bonus. But the way he's excited to work with Stroman and DeGrom and everybody, Peterson, everybody else, I think McCann's going to turn out to be a much better signing pound for pound than JT Real Muto.
We have a question coming in from Anakin Skywalker. First of all, Anakin, thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know that there's wars to fight and just a lot of chaos out there. Jim, are the Cubs still shopping Chris Bryant? I thought he'd be dealt by now. I confess that I did too. That's my own opinion, but I'm curious to know whether you think they'd go back, the Mets would, into the trade market and trade more talent for a Bryant in addition to Lindor.
So about 2 weeks ago on the award-winning BNNY show, I said that Chris Bryant is not going to be traded anymore. I was told that the Cubs had a conversation with Chris Bryant about him not being traded. They were at this point going to go, unless there was an unusual trade where there was, in their opinion, an overpay. Chris Bryant was going to be a Cub coming to spring training. And so that ship has passed from the Cubs side of things, unless someone was willing, Mets or anyone else, willing to overpay. And I don't think Bryant had the type of year last year that I think that's why the Cubs didn't trade him. They went around the entire league in places that were needing a third baseman. They didn't get what they were looking for. And so they're going to hold him until trade deadline. So that's an option potentially for the Mets if they feel like there's a need there later in the summer. But right now, Bryant is not available.
And I would just say about third base real quick too. They're happy with JD Davis. They feel like, look, I mean, he's JD Davis. You're not gonna set that in stone. If something better comes along, that's fine. But they traded away 11 years of team control, I think, between the two shortstops that they traded to Cleveland. So the fact that Davis is early in his career and has a lot of control left means something to a front office, and it's has a lot to do with why I think the odds are that Davis will be the first opening day third baseman.
I know the Mets just won their arbitration case against him, and having talked to Jim a lot about arbitration hearings, I don't feel like that's a healthy marriage right now between JD and the Mets, but that's just the way those things work. I guess you just have to move forward, and they're just fighting over hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is so fascinating to me. Elizabeth asks, any thoughts about playing Conforto in center instead of Nimmo if they don't add a center fielder? Jim, Conforto is pretty much viewed as a right fielder at this point, correct? Not a center field option?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I mean, to Elizabeth's point, though, he did play well when he played in center field a couple of years ago. But I know that the team feels, and Conforto's people recently even told me that he wants to play right field solely, and that's the best thing for him, both offensively and defensively. He's a plus defender in center field, or right field rather, and you know the offense should be there as well. So I think when you're trying to make those type of decisions and whether it's better for the team or not, I'm not saying that at some point at the end of the year, if Nimmo didn't work out well, or if they were looking for more offense, or there's an injury somewhere, whatever, they wouldn't maybe temporarily put Conforto center field. But I think it's their plan and goal to keep him in right field for the entire season, and I think that's how you're going to get the most production out of him.
All right, I want to go around the horn on Eric's question here. Do the Mets extend any of the big guys on their last year before the season? So let's start with Sal here, because one thing that I find really interesting that we talk about on the show a lot is the idea of wanting or needing to see Lindor play his first season in a Mets uniform in New York after an off year last year in 2020. And Conforto put together a 162 season that he had last year. Sal, do you feel like you need to see either of those things before you approach the player, or are you ready to give Conforto and Lindor extensions today?
Tough question. I really, look, me personally, and I don't know why the fans are all caught up in this. I don't ever remember caring before the season started. One thing during the year, all right, the guy's playing, he's playing well. Remember the Mets acquired Piazza. Jim, obviously you remember well. And there was talk about, is he going to resign? What's going on with Piazza? That's different to me than where we're at now, where it's been so much focused on these two guys before we even get into their final season here. I think I know what Conforto is. I think I also know what he wants to get paid like, and I'm not so sure that what he is and what he's going to want to be paid like would jive for me. Lindor, again, I maybe want to see a little more with him because he hasn't played in New York yet at all, so maybe I could wait that out. I would prefer to wait until the offseason. I mean, the Mets have enough money here. This is New York City. We should get back to the days where you're not losing the players that you have on your roster because they're signing for more money elsewhere unless you don't want them. So I wouldn't be in a rush to lock everybody up now. Oh, let's get it done so we can save a couple $1 million. Let it play out. I mean, it's a long year. Let it play out. If they want to test free agency, let them be it. Here's what we have to offer. You know what New York is. We want you back. This is our, you could go test the market and come back to us. Fine. I'm not in any hurry to get these guys locked up. You know what? If Lindor wants to go somewhere else, let's say he doesn't have success here, he wants to go somewhere else, there'll be other players that the Mets could go get. They will get players now because they have the money. So I don't need to be locked in to just those two guys. I know what they are, but maybe Lindor specifically, I want to see him play a little bit in New York.
I think I really agree with everything you just said, and I really strongly like the first part where you said about like why are we so caught up in this stuff now? And I think it's partly the fault of those of us who write about it too. I've thought about that. I wrote a story last week about Conforto's potential contract situation. I reported it out and talked to a lot of people and stuff. But there's so many numbers in the story, and I wrote it, and I was kind of like, this is like not a sports story. Like, when did we become so consumed by contract details, or like our readers become so consumed with it? I think it's an interesting question you ask. I don't have the whole answer to it, but it's like Lindor himself actually made a good point on his introductory Zoom. It was a deflection, but still, he's like, let's live in the moment. It's like, let's just enjoy it. And you make a good point, like, what's the rush? And I actually do want to see Lindor play because he had a down year last year. and there's some questions over his ability to hit velocity even though he's only 27, his numbers on fastballs above 93, 95 miles an hour, it's been in steady decline. You don't want to give him 10 years and be like, whoops, he's lost a step. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I like what you're saying about like, when were we talking about the business of the sport all the time? Like, when did that start? It's a good point.
Yeah, I'll tell you the other thing real quick on that is, there was a time where if, like with Piazza, going back to what you brought, Sal, like legitimately, like we traded for him in the middle of the season, and he didn't want to talk until at the end of the season. And we made a huge push to keep him at the end of that year before he became a free agent, before he could even else it. We ended up signing him to a record deal. Okay. But now, and there was a day where there was a feeling with agents and players, like if you didn't sign this guy up before he became a free agent, he is not come back, right? But if you look just to this year's free agent group, LeMahieu re-signed with the Yankees, Realmuto re-signed with the Phillies, Ozuna just re-signed with the Braves. There's 3 examples right there of guys that went out on free agents to the free agent market, tried to see if they could get anything more, and went back to their old teams. And so I think that I'd say over the last 4 or 5 years, that's been a better play. That it's not a guarantee that if they're out in the free agent market, they're leaving. And I think that even if they don't come to a deal by opening day, I wouldn't rule out Conforto or Lindor staying in New York beyond the season.
One other thing quickly, Doug, too. It's one thing if you talk about, and we've been through this with the Mets and their pitchers, right? If they're 2 years out or 3 years out and you say, okay, well, we'll give you some security now and buy out some of your free agent years. That's a different story than when you're in the final year for both the player and the team. So that's why I don't know why we're all caught up in this right now. You project and say, okay, well, we got this guy for value. Let's lock him up, buy out some of his free agent years. Totally different story. A guy's entering his free agent year. One guy you haven't even seen suit up in your uniform yet and play in New York. I don't get all the talk about the extension just yet.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing if, like Lindor, if he had stayed in Cleveland, for example, he would have done that, like take a page out in the paper, even though technically the Cleveland Indians could sign him and say, thanks for all the years of support. Everyone knows he's gone. You know what I mean? But if you're talking about the Braves and Ozuna, for example, you have the ability as the Braves to say, oh, go do your thing. Like, because they know that they could, their camp will reach back out and say, hey, Marcel's getting a good offer from so-and-so. Can you compete with that? And the Braves can say, sure. So it does depend on the market size, but it's a great point that all 3 of you just made, that the Mets now have the ability to say, go do it. Test the open market, because you have your confidence in yourself and the money to back it up, that if you get a great offer from somewhere else, great. We could probably counter if we like the player enough. If not, we're fine either way. Let's see. Brian Roberts, very good second baseman from the Baltimore Orioles. Yeah,
for a while.
Yankees second baseman as well. Haven't heard anything about
extension down the Orioles. Yeah,
you did extend. I was trying to remember if you were the one that paid Brian Roberts.
Good base stealer. Haven't heard anything about Kiermaier or Kane for the Mets. Any chance they can acquire as salary dumps? Both seem like great fits. Interesting question. Kiermaier, great defensively. Andy?
Yeah, I think Kiermaier is overpaid for his production right now, would be my initial reaction. I believe, his offensive numbers are in decline. He's making 14, 15. I'd have to look it up.
He's around, I looked it up last night because a caller called my radio show, but he's around that, like 11, 12, 13, I think, each of the next 3 years.
I don't know. And Kane, I hadn't heard. The answer, Brian, is no. I have not heard anything concretely about either of these guys. Kane makes some more sense to me, maybe for a short-term option in center, though. So I like the idea.
Jim?
I don't know anything more. Kiermaier is certainly available. I don't think Kane is. I think the Brewers, back-to-back postseason, versus he sat it out last year. Kane did. He's looking to come back, and they signed him, gave him an extra year because they knew the individual. He came up in the Brewers organization. So I think that they committed to him going forward to stay there in Milwaukee. So I don't think he's available. Kiermaier would be a salary dump. I think Tampa would take back some money, but to the point of, I'm not so sure that in the end they wouldn't be better off going with Nimmo and Almora than a Kiermaier, even though Kiermaier is clearly the better center fielder. I personally, if they're going to spend money, I'd like them to see that, like, they would clearly upgrade with Bradley. I know the offense has been a struggle, but like it's jumping from. I did this one night on Mets Hot Stove. Defensive run saved was Mets were 25th in center field last year. Bradley was 5th in major leagues. Like, it is a huge jump on the defensive side, and Bradley has more offense. I pay the extra money and go get Bradley if they could, and I wouldn't rule that out as an option.
Yeah, that's what I would prefer, what Jim just said. I'd rather have, I mean, I know people are getting caught up in Kiermaier or even Lorenzo Kane. I like Kane, but at this point, no. And I value defense more so than anything else. I just worry about Bradley Jr. because I think he's going to get overpaid. That's the only issue there. The player, I think, fits the Mets, and they have to figure out, as you said, Doug, earlier in the show, how they're going to work that outfield. Obviously, no DH really screws the Mets because they get two guys that aren't outfielders. It's a big time problem. If there was the luxury of the DH, it's very simple. Move Nimmo to left, I would move Alonso to DH. We talked about it 100 times, but Jackie Bradley Jr. would be the better fit because he's the better player and the much better defensive center fielder than what the Mets already have.
Yeah, I think you may quickly. Sorry, Doug. I saw that point about the DH. It's good that you raised that because that's actually my reporting on that. I forgot to say is that the fact that even if there is a DH, they won't find out now until late, like maybe the night before opening day, there's a deal for a DH in playoffs. But now we're pretty sure, the teams are pretty sure they have to plan for no DH. And that really creates a problem with signing Bradley for the Mets. Doug, you make a good point about people get hurt. And these questions are sometimes irrelevant ultimately. But the Mets are thinking like, well, no, but really, what do we do with Nimmo and Smith if we sign Bradley with no DH? If there's in a world with an NLDH, I think Bradley would appeal much more to the Mets. And now they're kind of like, is it really, it's affecting the situation, definitely.
If there's one Jackie Bradley Jr. takeaway for our audience, and we've made this point a couple times on BNNY about Jackie Bradley Jr., it should be that he may be as a fan, as a Met fan, your fallback from Springer. He does not want to get paid like a fallback from Springer. He views himself, and Andy mentioned this earlier, that 50 million, something like that, maybe more. He views himself as a premier defensive center fielder, which he is, and also a guy with power who's coming off a good offensive season. Yeah. So, look up his Baseball Reference page, and I think you will be surprised to see the power that he's had and also the production year after year, the fact that he's been an all-star. That's what he's pitching right now. He and his agent are pitching, I want to be a $50 million guy. I don't want to be a 1-year, $15 million, this team didn't get Springer, so I'll go to that.
And that's the problem, because then the Mets would have to, which look, maybe he's worth that, but then the Mets have to commit. So in years past, and I forget who the examples are, there have been so many where the Mets have had like 2 or 3 guys for one position. None of them are any good. And you say, well, how are they going to find at bats? And then naturally one of them gets hurt and it works out. In this particular case, you've already Conforto's locked in right field. You would have been committed to Jackie Bradley Jr. You have 2 guys who you want in the lineup. Dom Smith's bat has to be in the lineup. He was one of their best offensive players a year ago. So he needs to be in the lineup. Does that mean that Nimmo becomes a 4th outfielder? I would be okay with that. But now you're losing. See, instead of having defense first in center field, but you still have Nimmo's bat in the lineup because of DH, and you have Dom Smith and all the other offense there, now you're losing offense to replace it in center field with just defense with Jackie Bradley Jr. That's why it's an awkward fit.
You get better defensively, you get a little worse offensively. So you look at run creation and run prevention, and then you're. I think that's a great point, and I know the Mets are thinking the same thing on that one. So I would say the only hope on Bradley coming cheaper could be, Boris is known for his strategy that he calls the pillow contract, where if the market just isn't there this year, he will go that direction sometimes and do a 1-year deal. That is not what they want to do with Bradley. They look at, and I think justifiably, the Boris Corp looks at, they're like, we got Michael Bourne 4 years and $48 million in 2012. That was a long time ago for a player who didn't stick in center field and who didn't have the power that Bradley has. So a decade almost later, Bradley should be able to get close to $100 million. Like, that's their perspective. If Bourne got that years ago. But having said all that, where's Bradley going?
Right.
Red Sox are lukewarm at best. I've heard the Phillies, that's not happening. That's something I think that just Bradley would like out there, but it's not happening. Who's paying a center fielder right now after the Blue Jays have done their thing with Springer. So maybe in another couple of weeks, it's like, all right, fine, 1 year at 15. We'll do this again next year. I think that's possible.
The DH thing is so crazy that we don't know. I mean, look, this is hundreds of $1 million at stake in a decision that we might make the night before the season starts. It just feels a little unfair in a couple ways. Okay, we got it.
Doug, it is very unfair because look at the Yankees, for example. It's unfair that the American League, and it's not just a Yankee Met thing, the American League can build their team in accordance with having the luxury of the DH, and the National League team can, and you're playing interleague play every single day. It is, come on now, let's evolve. And I'm a purist. It's not fair. The Yankees have the luxury of Giancarlo Stanton. They're, $300 million man or whatever can DH, and the Mets can't go get a $15 million a year center fielder because they don't know what to do with the rest of their outfield. It's not fair.
Great point. We have a couple questions. The Guy Corner NYC, upside to the two Jakes, Arrieta or Odorizzi? It's an interesting question because I think Odorizzi, lower upside, but you kind of know what you're going to get. And Arrieta has been great, but he's older. I would say Arrieta, but Jim, how does he viewed right now? Do people think he's done, or does he have more left in the tank?
Well, with Arrieta, I think there is some concern about him, just in terms of what he has left in the tank. No question on that. He's a guy that keeps himself in tremendous shape. He's a guy you get, I've known because I drafted him when I was with the Orioles, so I've known him that long. Up until when he was with the Cubs, even I thought he was a good makeup guy. Then you hear, you're not sure what you hear coming out of Philly. On a 1 year deal, I feel like he's fine. I like Odorizzi. If you look at Odorizzi's numbers and you compare, let's say you take out just the partial season in 2020, and Odorizzi was hurt, but it wasn't any arm issues. And you just look at 2018, 2019, and put Odorizzi next to Bauer, and the numbers are surprisingly close, but for far less. But it doesn't seem like Mets right now are in on Odorizzi at all. So it's difficult to say. I personally, I'm a little biased because Odorizzi, he comes on my show every year. We do an hour of a show, just like we do with Trevor May. By the way, Trevor May's coming on this week on my show for a full hour. But Odorizzi is another one of those. How did you just
masterfully work in a plug into that answer?
I'm pro plug. I am pro plug. Plug away.
Just slide it in.
Very nice.
Just sliding that in. But Odorizzi is a great guy.
What time and where can people find it?
And 10 to 1 Eastern time on Sirius XM.
There we go.
XM 89, Sirius 210. But I don't know what May and Odorizzi are coming on. I don't know. I think Wednesday and Thursday. The other aspect with Odorizzi is he has a supporter in the coaching staff with Jeremy Hefner from their Minnesota days. So Hefner, is behind the scenes supportive of Odorizzi too. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like there's a fit there, or there's a match from the front office side of things.
You wonder if sometimes someone and you like him, and sometimes you know him and you don't as much. So I wonder if those relationships have informed, because you're right. It's a little bit like, why don't the Mets like him? You mentioned the Hefner connection. I don't know. And I also want to say that you made me realize when you didn't know your necessarily your XM channel, I thought for a second, realized I have absolutely no clue what channel on the dial SNY is.
What?
No idea. I don't even, because I have one of those remotes you're talking to, I go SNY, and it goes to it. We could be channel 600 or 100. I have no clue.
Yeah, I mean, it is also less valuable information because cable is different from satellite radio. If you say you can't at the QBC say, oh, channel 612, it might be 612 for 5 of the viewers, because cables are different.
But still, to not know
a lot simpler. We don't have to memorize.
Well, how would I know?
We don't have to memorize phone numbers anymore, Sal. I don't know what the phone number is.
No, it's not like on the polo or anything, Sal.
The radio dial is hard to fit. There's so many different channels. Who knows what that's? A TV, Andy, how long have you been at SNY? At least 10 years. I mean, I would know the channel by heart. You have no idea what channel it's on?
I have no idea what group of hundreds of channels it's on. I watch it all the time. I just don't know the number of the channel because, again, in this world that we live in, you can say the phrase SNY into the remote, and it goes to that channel. So that that's what I got.
That's
I'd like
more
to pivot,
difficult.
if you can, to Jack Schwartz's final question that's in the queue.
Hang on before we get to Jack Schwartz. Sal, I know you're purposefully leaning back so that you get some love for your sweatshirt.
No. Only here for the fives.
You've been, as Jim was just talking, you're like, height doesn't measure heart.
Oh my!
Height doesn't measure heart.
Truth be told, my shoulder is killing me, and I needed to stretch it out a little bit.
For our viewers, Sal is shamelessly promoting Marcus Stroman's clothing brand.
Hey,
which is going to get complicated.
That
It's going to get complicated when Stroman gives up 5 runs in May, and Sal's on the radio ripping him to shreds.
Stro was a little sensitive on Twitter yesterday to one of my colleagues over at WFA and wasn't happy with the Mets losing out on Bauer, and I was like, I hope he didn't see the videos or watch me on TV. He's going to hate me. I do think, can I just say this for a second? I do think players have to understand. Like, I love Stroman, right? I love his positive mind. Obviously, like his clothing line. I think he's going to have a good year. What we do a lot of times, if not all the time, is not for them. This is entertainment. I could sit here and say, the Mets needed to get Bauer and the offseason's a bust. Doesn't mean I think Stroman stinks or his teammates stink. He's going to take offense to that. That's why he can't pay attention to what's tweeted by the fans or by media, because it's not – I did that video. I'm not thinking what Marcus Stroman is thinking, because obviously it's going to upset him. It seems like you're attacking his team. There's got to be – I love him, but, I got to do my job too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think anytime someone goes after the media as an entity, it's problematic. But I guess I'm biased in that one too. But I didn't like that either. What he did yesterday.
Before we get to Kapil, let's get to Jack's second question.
I like it.
Duquette looks and sounds exactly like my stepdad, except my stepdad knows nothing about baseball. Jack, that's not a question, but I think it's interesting. I'd like to get the Duquette.
Can I meet your stepdad? To talk to your stepdad.
Wouldn't that be weird if
like
he was
an
exact doppelganger? Like, really was. Like, oh my God, that's Jim.
The same voice.
So
maybe he could just take over.
You could have to double for the days when you're. Well, you have so many different gigs, Jim, that a doppelganger would not be the worst thing for you. You could be on with us while you're on Sirius and things like that.
That's what Todd Zeal has. There are 3 or 4 Todd Zeals.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
So
One
Jack
works at
get
SNY most of the time.
please.
The other, one Todd Zeal works at SNY. One's involved in gaming. One has a successful acting career. There's
one
that
distributes
just like
water
hangs out.
internationally. By the way,
distributes water internationally. Lives in Southern California. Okay, so Kapil, I think I'm pronouncing that name right. Apologies if I'm not. I want to let Jim nerd out over the Arenado contract, trade, whatever the Rockies decided to do there. But this is an interesting question. Do you think that the lengthy Bauer pursuit hurt the Mets in trying to trade for Arenado? Did not cost the Cardinals a lot. That's an understatement. Well, at least that's my perspective. Maybe I'm just reading into the narrative. Jim, what did you think? Do you think the Mets would have been involved if they realized that the Rockies would help pay for it?
Oh boy, I think that that's a possibility that they should have been interested when you look at the overall cost. I know that they have they've had conversations in the past, and conversations have gone nowhere between Jeff Bridich and Sandy Alderson. And Jeff Bridich he's a different general manager, the Colorado Rockies GM. He is not easy to deal with, and he's had a prior relationship in dealing with the Cardinals before. And Arenado had a no trade clause. I don't know. We don't know if he would have accepted coming to New York or not, but certainly with in St. Louis, that was one destination spot for him. So it's so many different things to try to jump through to try to figure out. But I do think that when you look at the overall cost, almost every team should have been interested in Arenado. I mean, there's just no denying it. They're getting him for really the same level that you paid George Springer, but Arenado is one of the top 5 players in the sport. And then he had another year, so his AAV comes down. He checks off almost every single box. So yeah, they should. I mean, again, we're just talking about in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Yes, they should have had interest.
Never were. It was. I mean,
overall.
people always wanted to know about the Mets Arenado thing, and I was like, there is no Mets Arenado thing. Literally, like, it just wasn't. I mean, the Mets tried to trade for me as aggressively as they tried to trade for Arenado. It just wasn't a thing. But Jim, you make good points about why maybe it should have been.
Yeah, why not? Well, what's the
I don't know.
He would have been.
There's never anything there.
I mean, I would have rather have had, I mean, Springer obviously in center field, but I would have rather had Arenado than Lindor. I mean, I know some people are saying you're nuts, Lindor's a better player, but I mean, Arenado's a hell of a player, and the power offensively, Gold Glove defensively, if not both. I mean, what if that's the price? And I wanted them before I knew what the Cardinals paid for him, which is essentially nothing for that caliber player. Why wouldn't the Mets be in on him? Doesn't make any sense.
I will say that I had visions of like 18 homer seasons with Arenado in Citi Field and away from Coors, and still a brilliant Brooks Robinson-esque third baseman, but I do think the splits, and I know people who've worked in the Rockies organization and people who've played for the Rockies hate bringing up the splits away from Coors, but they tell a story. They tell a story with Trevor's story. You wonder how much you should weigh into them, but I can't help but think about them.
Also, Sandy Alderson is temperamentally opposed to long-term commitments, so he's going to enter. I'm not saying Arenado wasn't the guy for me, but I'm saying Sandy's going to be so careful about trading for someone under contract like that, because he is just, I mean, even with Bauer, it was a 3-year offer, and that's why it was appealing. They're like, well, we'll play if it's short-term, and it turned out to be short-term. He was not going to get into a bidding war on Springer. He just really doesn't like long-term deals because he likes the idea that 2 or 3 years down the road, he'll have flexibility to pivot to like younger, better players. Now that sometimes bites him, but I'm just saying that's how he operates.
You just nailed exactly. I mean, we could see it, right? We see that operating. And by the way, the reason why he doesn't like long-term deals, because they never work out. Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. They never work out. So I can sit here and scream and say, give him the extra year, who cares? They never work out. So I understand that logic. The problem is, Andy, what you also touched on, he's going to miss out. Exhibit A, George Springer. So at some point, if the best players continue to get 6, 7, 8, 10-year deals, at some point you're going to have to commit long-term, even with the understanding that it's not going to work out. Otherwise, it's all relying on drafting and developing your own players, which is something that they haven't done, and I know that they hope is going to completely change moving forward.
I will say the one thing that would be worse than signing a player to a long-term deal that you know is going to bite you in the end would be inheriting one that you didn't even negotiate. So like what Brian Cashman had to do for Stanton is kind of like and you know, I know he wanted the player and he's a great player, but I think that would be the cautionary tale to any other GM.
How about Robinson Cano? I mean,
yeah, that's true. That's true, Sal.
Robinson Cano got a big hit last night in the Caribbean World Series, and Juan Lagares.
That's what you've been tweeting out.
He took.
I thought you've been tweeting out like Mets classics.
That's what
this was fun. So everyone was like hanging on the Bauer stuff, and I understand I'm one of the Twitter accounts they were following. As I was covering Bauer, I was luxuriating in the Caribbean World Series, which is like 3 games a day. Just like watch some baseball. It's great, and it was just fun every once in a while to be like, all right. Mets still don't have an agreement with Bauer, and the Dodgers are in. And, oh, by the way, Lagares thrown out trying to stretch. It's like, what?
What channel is that on? Caribbean.
It was on Deportes.
We've got a couple quick hitters here. Elizabeth asks again, can you keep Gary Blevins in the regular BNNY lineup next year, even if he's back pitching with the Mets? We hope to keep him involved with some segments. I'm not sure if they'll be live very often. They might be, but he has loved doing the show. We've loved having him. So I think at the very least, he'll keep doing Hello Jerry if he's on the team, which was a segment for Mets pregame. So he won't disappear from SNY. Joseph asks, Sal, what is all the stuff in your background? Looks like a good collection. You want to briefly explain everything you've got back there?
Yeah, mostly bobbleheads back there from stadiums that I visited. A lot of them are Mets stadium giveaway bobbleheads. A couple others, figures and things like that sprinkled in there of different sports and different teams. But mostly, especially the top shelf, is all stadium bobbleheads that I've either been to or just from Citi Field in general.
And Joe DeMeo wants to know why you've blocked him on Twitter, Sal.
Well, I mean, Joe, there's probably a logical reason for this.
Something probably happened, Joe.
You must have been disrespectful. Now, out of respect to you, because I understand that, you do a lot of good work with the Mets, and I appreciate you asking, and I'm a good guy, I will unblock you. But all I ask for, you can disagree. You can disagree all you want. All I ask for is proper respect. Just be respectful. You hate me for my Bauer opinion, that's one thing. Name calling or being disrespectful or clown opinion or bad take, I don't tolerate any of that. It's an automatic block. But I appreciate you asking, and I will definitely unblock you.
There we go.
Okay.
You mediated a
That's nice.
conflict, Doug.
Putting people together. Brian Roberts asked another question. He says, Andy, you made a comment last night about how you rely on two sources while other reporters do not, which was timely last night because we were talking about, as Sal put it, the fake news report. Can you explain how this works and how often it saves you?
Oh, sure. It might save me every day because Jim and I both have a similar process, I think, where we spend the whole day on the phone gossiping with baseball people. That's basically the job. And then after it, you go, okay, what's reportable? So you hear all kinds of good stuff. I'll give you an example. I got a tip that the Yankees finished second on Lindor, and it came from a connected person. But people gossip all the time in the game, and it's all in good fun. It's like, hey, man, I heard that the Yankees finished second. Oh, really? So I could have reported that at the time, but I was like, I'm going to take some time here and try to talk to some Yankee people, and it turned out not to be true. So that's an example of how that works and how that saves you. It also hurts you. See, unfortunately, I have a very tortured relationship with like the value of being the first to report a transaction. I think that there have been many times when I've heard something, I was waiting for the second source, and then another reporter broke the story, and I got beat. So there's a lot of like, damn it, I had that. And that's the cost of being careful. But I think, unfortunately, that if you're wrong once, it's more memorable than being right 100 times.
All right.
So you have to be careful. In fact, I had a really good baseball source tell me on Thursday night that the Mets signed Bauer. Like a good source. Mets have signed Trevor Bauer. They have a deal. Jim, you had that too? Yeah, doesn't surprise me. It was going around.
Similar. Had very specific terms.
Yes.
Turned out being that true.
Wasn't
so the
true.
difference is Nightingale goes with it, and you guys wait.
I'm not talking about any other person.
No. Well, I mean, he did go with it, so he must have heard the same thing. He goes with it, and the difference is you're saying, well, because I'm not a reporter, so I don't know. But I hear if I have that news, hell, I better. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's a trusted source. I'm going with it. So why then wouldn't you? You guys both need to like double, triple check
because you don't want to be wrong. It's like I almost broke Bauer to Dodgers. I was second on it, and I've been actually angry about it ever since, which sucks. It's a horrible way to live. But if I'd broken Bauer to Mets, I would be upset for like years. Yeah, I remember that for the rest of my life. That's terrible. You can't be wrong on something.
Some people,
so that's why you have to wait.
Some people just move right on to Dexter Fowler and tweet about Dexter Fowler 17 times.
I don't think
some people just don't care.
I'm not part of this.
Yeah. That's a great point.
I'm not part of this.
Keith, we'll wrap up in about 3 minutes. Jim, quickly, because none of you at home may know this, Jim Duquette is really well sourced and is a person that I ask question to about front office stuff, but also does reporting mostly for his work, but not to be first and not to report things on Twitter. So, Jim, do you think that that's partially, along with the regular connections that you have, partially why you get so much information because sources know that you're not trying to be first about certain things?
Yeah, I think that's solely why I get the information because I have a lot of friends that still work in front offices. I was in front offices for almost 20 years, and I still have deep friendships with them. And I learned this early on when I had a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and then I reported it, and then they came back to me later like, dude, you almost got me fired because I told you information because of our friendship, and it was stuff that I was assuming that you weren't going to put on the air. And so, like, right away, I learned that, man, I got to be much more sensitive to that than I had really thought out. I was just trying to, do what Andy does, what Ken Rosenthal. Like, these guys are really good at it. There's no way I could even compare to any of that. I don't have those type of sources. I have sources that within the game, they would tell me stuff because they trust me and because it's baseball conversation, not for publication. So I value that more, and so I'd rather just respond or react to it, or if I can help somebody else fill in a blank, maybe I can help in that sense. But I'd rather that than sometimes I get the information, I can tweet it out, but I rarely do that.
Well, guys, this has been great, and I appreciate everything. And Keith, and to Dan as well, thank you so much for allowing us to do this again. Thanks so much for having us. For those of you who are watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Baseball Night in New York as well. This has been really cool technology and really easy for me to use and read the questions. And it's cool that they're up on the screen while we're talking about it. So Keith, well done. We appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate it. Dan really appreciates it. And I know all the fans appreciate it. So I'm going to take you guys out one by one. And thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith. Later, man.
Yeah, everybody.
All right. That was Baseball Night in New York from SNY. Those guys are great. That was such a fun show. I couldn't ask for more out of them. They did a great job for us. The next panel is going to be hosted by me again. I'm sorry, you guys, you're stuck with me. I'm bringing in Joe Marichek, Graphics Joker, Andrew Hermida, also known as Mr. Moody Met, and I don't know where Dave Maggio is right now, so I'm going to give him a few seconds. I'm going to throw up another video from a past QBC just to see what's going on with him. And then we'll be right back. So again, thank you guys for all paying attention to the QBC today. Thank you for all the, oh wait, I found a Maggio, but I'm still going to take a quick little break. I'm going to throw on Bobby Valentine from a couple of years ago, and then I'll be right back with the artist panel of, well, let me rephrase that. The Mets fan artist panel.
He doesn't need a microphone.
Nice.
Is this on?
Hey, thanks, guys. I looked down here. These guys are wearing the mustache and the glass thing, huh? Look at them. And so, about 5 years ago, I spoke to all the coaches, amateur and professional coaches in Italy, if you can imagine. Room of 300 people. These are Italians, right? The guy gets through introducing me, and they all stand up, and they have the nose that... And I say, who are you guys kidding? You don't need the nose? You know what I mean? Okay, what do we got? I don't know if we're live, Matt. You got it, bro.
I think we're always live. I was going to introduce Bobby Valentine, but that's already been done. So I'm Matthew Cerrone. I'm the creator and lead writer of MetsBlog.com.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for sticking around right now. You can actually catch that Bobby Valentine panel on the YouTube channel. I wish I could run some more, but I don't want to hold up our guests. I'm going to bring them in one by one. We got Joe, a.k.a. Graphics Joker.
Hello.
We got Andrew Hermida.
Hi.
And fortunately, we got Dave Maggio.
God damn it. Hi. I don't get it.
Thank you guys for all being here. You guys are all talented artists, and you guys have done some great artwork over the years when it comes to the Mets and the Mets brand. I'm gonna I'm going to ask you guys, like, when did you all start, like, deciding that, hey, you know, I love the Mets. I want to start drawing, you know, the Mets. Was it just, like, something that you thought of doing it, or just did it come naturally? So since we've never had Herm on before, I'm going to go with you first, Herm.
Yes, thank you for having me. To answer that question, my first professional job out of college, I was working as a graphic designer, like in an office setting, and I could finish my work pretty quickly because it was like for a chain of like retail clothing stores. So it was like socks, $1, and I made those kinds of signs. The reason I bring that up is I would finish my work so early, so I had all this time to do, and to look busy, I would draw Mr. Met. And it was just like, just a cool project I made up on my own in order to just hone my skills a bit. And then it just kept at there. And then I met lots of other fun Mets themed artists, and we had this happy little family.
Yeah, the stuff that you've done it is awesome. You also just, like, during the game, you'll start drawing like what the scene is around you, right?
Yeah, so I work as a freelance illustrator, and one of the things that basically they always say, right, make the work that you want to get paid for. So I became really excited about drawing professional sporting events, and obviously being a big Mets fan, I went to quite a few Met games, and I would just draw everything that I would see, and I would try to capture the moment, so if you can see, like on the picture you're seeing now, you can see like my wife's in the left corner, certain people that were sitting around me, and this was a doubleheader, this game in 2019, so I tried to draw everybody who was playing and pitching, and kind of wrote down what game that was for. So it was kind of, it made me a better artist overall, and I have this really cool keepsake now. So it was a lot of fun.
No, it's awesome. And the stuff that you do, it just blows my mind because I don't have that talent at all. You put a video camera or a DSLR in front of me, I can do something. But once you ask me to draw something, no, it ain't happening. And I'm very jealous of you guys for being able to do stuff like that. Like the stuff that Graphics Joker's done, with the cartoon illustrations. They've been amazing. And like they've gone onto like TV shows and blogs and podcasts and stuff, and it's just some amazing stuff.
And tattoos.
And tattoos. But like this one, I nice little transition with Herm with Mr. Met and Syndergaard with Mr. Met.
Giving him a noogie.
Yeah. So Joe, like, when did you start doing this kind of stuff where you're like, you know what, I want to draw, one of my favorite teams?
Basically, I mean, I started when I was a kid. I think it started with the Islanders first, and then to the Mets. And then in '86, I started doing a little more, pencil drawings, oil paintings. It really started with the oil paintings before the cartoons. And then in 2015, it really took off with the Harvey Dark Knight cartoon that I did. And I noticed that it was getting more attention for the cartoons than the oil paintings. So I started pivoting that way more. And then people started requesting, other players, and the whole Marvel and the superheroes thing took off. I really, 2015, 2016, really, I think would say with the Mets art, that's when it really took it to another level.
This is one of your oil paintings?
Yeah. That's a Noah Syndergaard I did a few years ago. And actually, my nephew owns it now. He loves Noah. So.
It's amazing. That's like a gorgeous piece of art right there, And I think you need to push that a little more than just your cartoons. People need to know about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I enjoy oil painting. I have a studio in Roslyn. I teach kids oil painting during the week part-time. I really enjoy it. It's just once we had the two girls, our daughters were born, I couldn't really oil paint in the house anymore. So it's been a little more difficult, but I definitely want to continue, get back to it. The cartoons have just taken over because, fans and friends and even family are like, hey, I want a cartoon drawing of me, or do another cartoon. And, so I'm definitely back and forth, here and there, changing it up.
And let's go to my buddy Dave. I give him a lot of crap, but he could take it.
It's okay.
He's a really good guy. He's been with us for a long time with the QBC. He usually does a lot of our 8x10s with our giveaways. He did the Keith Hernandez one for us. We had the luncheon with Keith, and another great talented artist. I'm so lucky to actually know you three guys, So here's one of the paintings that Maggio did.
Yep.
And,
that one, yeah, that was the first attempt I did at like a full watercolor, because a lot of my stuff is always just black and white. But I just wanted to try it. I always wanted to do oil painting, never really have, and don't have the space to do it just because of the fumes and stuff. And Joe understands the same thing. Like, it's a very limited thing that you can do. And I never really worked in color, but something about that picture, and then knowing like that was the year that Keith was supposed to be at QBC, I believe, and then hurt his back and he had to back out of it at that time. And then we did the lunch with him later, but that's kind of what got me going on that one. But it was a fun experience to try something different, but have really awesome results. I should do it again sometime.
it was really good. You're also known as the Tifo guy with the 7 line.
Yeah,
they're banners.
They're banners. That's actually my favorite one. I love that one. It came out so awesome. It was the first time I painted like pictures of people, like somewhat of a portrait. Just figured out it was going to be a big game, and they had the 86 ceremony there. So, it came out so much better than I thought it would. And there's so many great shots of it while they're having the team on the field and celebrating stuff. And I think I said one of our earlier broadcasts that we did was there's this one picture of it where Gary's wife and son is accepting, like, on his behalf of being there, and like the 7 Line Army had it up over the crowd, and it like came together as such a great picture. Like, it was really one of the best ones, I think. And unfortunately, it has seen its demise. I don't own it anymore. It doesn't exist, but it's there in spirit.
It actually looks like I might be one of the guys holding up the banner with you.
I think you're the guy above the 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So now, have you guys had like trouble with any of your artwork when we're doing it? Have you got any cease and desist, even though like you weren't trying to sell it, or you're just doing it for fun? I haven't run into that kind of stuff. So like, people don't understand that how hard you guys work at it, that there's also fine lines that you can do with this stuff. Does that ever get like really annoying where it kicks you in the teeth, where you're like, oh, do I really feel like having to deal with this while I'm trying to create my art? I'll let any one of you answer first.
My answer is no, so Joe, take it away. I don't know.
They're coming for you, Dave.
I know they are. That's what they. Before that hat came in the mail, man, I was convinced. I'm like, oh, here it comes.
We're getting a letter. Yeah, I mean, with the oil paintings, not really. I have been learning to, I try to photograph as much of the work I can and then paint from there. But I have used other photographers' work, and I try to credit them. When I know it's their work, I see their name on that, but I haven't had a problem there. But with the cartoons, yes. When I started doing the Matt Harvey, started with that one, 2015, the fans were like, hey, we want this on shirts, on stickers. I really didn't know what went into all that. So I just put them on like a, third-party website. I printed a bunch of the Dark Knight Harveys and a couple other players. And then, I thought it was a brilliant idea to send the Mets, all the players, Harvey and the crew, free stickers. I gave them all these stickers, sent it all over there. And next week, I know I get a letter, take down the Harvey stuff. And then I got another one from Warner Brothers, because I guess anything with horns and a mask is protected under Batman. And then the Dark Knight wanted me to shut that down as well. So I got a double whammy, cease and desist, and ever since then I've asked for permission, and I've got it most of the times. And if they say no, I just don't reproduce it or sell it. So, because I'm not licensed by the league, as you guys know about the licensing and all that, it's a whole nother world.
Yeah, that's never happened to me. I've also, I'll make like bootleg things, I call them, and like maybe 10 of something and give them out, like, like a Mr. Met, not even a t-shirt, like stickers and things, like to friends and family. But I've never, knock on wood, this is plastic, but it works just as
Herm, everyone loves you, Herm.
That is too sweet.
You're the best.
Yeah, until they get like a nice idea for a paycheck, and they'll be like, who's that Herm guy?
And they'll say, wait, he's friends with Graphics Joker. The guy's got a merch store. Look, we got to check this guy out too.
Yeah, not affiliated. Watch out.
Not affiliated.
All right, let me pull up some more artwork from you guys. All right, Herm, let's check this out.
Oh yeah, so to those that have never seen me or met me, hi, my name's Herm. I'd say my magnum opus is during the 2019 Mets season. I attended and drew live every Mets home game, and my goal for it was I went there and I drew and colored or whatever, and by the end of the ninth inning, I was done, and that was the end of that sort of thing. So again, like I had said earlier, is I wanted to, visually document everything that was happening. So this was the last game during the last, so this is the 10th and 11th inning. And I had these amazing seats where they gave you like free food. It was unbelievably awesome. And I was like in the second or third row. So it was really special to me being the last game. And I got all the free chicken fingers I wanted. So I just drew this. And again, this is just like no photo reference, nothing. It's just my pen in my hand and what I'm seeing on there. So it ended up being pretty cool. So you could see some of the cool moments there with that.
That's really awesome.
I love that stuff. That's like my favorite stuff that you put up. Like that just reminds me of like, croquis or gesture drawings and stuff. And it's just like the epitome of art, and just you capture, like, I think I said this to you one time we were talking. It's like, to me, you're almost like a modern day, not like an impressionist, but like you capture the movement. Like you capture everything that's going on. When you look at your work, it's like the essence of everything. It's just when you did the 2019 season, man, that was so cool. I loved catching you a couple times at a few of the games and just being like, oh my God, which one are you drawing now? This is awesome. Like
your art definitely pushes us, I mean, me personally, whenever I see something on Instagram in your stories, I love it. It just pushes me to want to keep going. I love, working with you guys and collaborating if possible. Maybe it'll be in the future, so.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you, God. Please. Thank you for all the kind words. It's super sweet of you. I think if you want to, like, anybody that's listening that really wants to learn how to draw, the best way is to draw, and then like I always get like a lot of advice where it's like, oh, you just got to start something and then you will be able to continue with it, obviously, right? So I make these little projects for myself, hence the Met game drawings. And then, once I was in it and I was like, all right, now I got to keep going. And then you put your work out there and you hear some nice things, maybe not the greatest things sometimes, but you keep with it, and then it just takes you to your finish line. There's my wife.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump into a couple of different comments right now. The first one from Fake Uncle Steve. You guys are all brilliant. Too bad it's not the real Uncle Steve. You could buy some of your artwork.
Hey, nice avatar he has there.
Oh yeah, that looks familiar, right?
Yeah. Who did that?
Big Dave.
Definitely.
Dave, here's a cool one from Teza. Never forgot the look on Fonzie's face when Dave Madrowitz presented him with his print at QBC 19.
Yeah, that was that was one of my favorite ones. And I think everybody at that one was so genuinely like excited about like the artwork and stuff. I know that that QBC, and then the previous one with Flexen and Nemo, like all the players were just like pumped about it. And I remember it was. Yeah, Fonzie loved it, and he was like trying to repose the same face that he was making with the picture that I painted as a reference from. And then was that the same year as oh God, who else was there with Fonzie? Drawing a blank. Help me out, Keith. You were there.
Strawberry was there, right?
Strawberry, yeah.
Was it the year Strawberry?
Yeah.
Nobody was. What year was Todd Zeal there?
I think it was the year before. I can't remember.
He was like freaking out. He was like, I want as many prints as I can get. These are amazing. I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like, don't hand them to your lawyers and send me a letter. That's cool.
Kimberly Ward wants to know, did you guys go to art school? And if so, where?
Yeah, I could. Yes. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I have a BFA in illustration. I think art school is cool and it's awesome. And I honestly, I don't think I learned that much from it, because I was like, I want to drink beer, and I did that. So, but I would recommend. I did meet some great people and stuff, but post art school, I think, is when I really learned how to draw. And then, you know, especially like with these projects with like drawing Mr. Met or your favorite players or baseball games and things, when you sit down and you have that idea and you just want to continue and you just get better and better at it, I got much more of an education from drawing Met games than I did at my 4 years of school, personally.
Yeah, I went, like one of the last shows you talked about, I went to an all-girls college, but that's for another different story. It was co-ed at night, so it was different. But I was an art major, you know, and focused on art education, really. But Herm's absolutely right. You don't – it's almost like they kind of give you some of the tools to do art with and a few techniques here and there, but it really – I think it takes it upon yourself, like, to actually hone those skills and – do what you want to do with them and figure out your path and your style on your own. Same thing like through high school, you learn like the basic stuff that you can apply later in life. But, you know, as like, I don't think I really learned anything new other than some things that annoyed me. Like I had a professor that told me I was not allowed to use black paint. I'm like, why?
That's true.
Why would they sell it? I know, but it's like, all right, don't sell black paint. I'm not going to use it. But, you know, it's, and sometimes a teenager or early 20s at the time you hear that and you're just like, no, screw you. And I don't want to listen to you. I'm going to do this myself. But, you know, I learned a lot, but I don't think I really started producing stuff that I thoroughly enjoyed until well after college.
I started as a kid, Rosin School of Painting on Long Island. And then from there, went to Boston School and Museum of Fine Arts and was always fine arts. And never touched a computer until I graduated. They wouldn't let me. The art professors were like, "Don't sell out. Don't go on the computer. Don't be a graphic designer." And then I come home and my dad's like, "All right, go get a job. What are you gonna do? Paint a wall?" You know. So kind of started playing with the computer. Went down that path. And but I've always still been painting and drawing, obviously. And you know, I push like what you guys are saying. If you can see it, you can draw it. Just get a pen, pad. Don't get nervous. Just try it. Have fun. You know. And see where it goes.
All right, next question from Captain. Topps has been doing a lot of baseball artist card sets recently. Has any of you been approached by them?
No, I have not. That would be awesome. I thought those were really cool. The idea of it and the different artists and stuff, some of my favorite people on there. Maybe if I had more social media people, I could have a card on there, but not throwing any shade. But I would love to draw one. That'd be super fun.
That would be awesome. I did like a series in 2015. I did a whole series of paintings of the starting lineup of the World Series team and a few of the pitchers and stuff. And I made it look like it was the 87 Topps, like the wood grain looking. You know, everybody knows that card. Like you look at it and you recognize that one right there. That's one of them.
Yeah,
I have that set that you gave me.
Yeah. So I mean,
years ago.
I love doing it. I thought it was fun, and then I saw one of who is it? Greg Heinler, I think his name is blows me away with his artwork, and I believe he did a lot of cards for them, and it's awesome. It's a great idea. I think, you know, I would love to get a phone call like that you know would want to do something along the lines of creating that. That would be I would jump on that in a second if I could. That'd be awesome.
All right, we got about like 8 more minutes. Let's see if we have any other comments. Nancy and MJ, Majo, any plans for making more baseball cards?
I always think about it. I would really like to. I think the one hardest part was I did do a second set of was it 86 card where it was like the very blocky triangle type shaped letters. I did it for QBC. I think I did it with all the was it the Internal Fire Award or whatever that you had? I did a whole set of those and thought like this could be really cool. And yeah, I'd love to. I remember the one spring training going down there with like a box full of card sets and just wanting to hand them out to everybody and hope that you'll turn them around and look at my website on the back. But one day I'll definitely be making some of those.
Well, just speaking about spring training, I remember this whole Dom Smith picture.
Yeah.
You want to tell that story really quick?
Yeah. I worked for a car dealership up here. I was working as a mechanic for a while, and I heard after I left and went on to actually teaching, I was like, oh, Dom Smith is doing an appearance. I was like, the hell is Dom Smith doing an appearance in Tom's River for? Like, this makes no sense. But I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a painting of him. I had like a week to do it. Did it really quick, and that was the first painting I did. It was like all the paint dropping, like the dripping watercolor look to it. Brought it to him, just give it to him. He signs it, and he wanted to keep it. But I was just like, no, man, this is mine. I don't want you to have my painting. This is my painting. I don't have another one. Thinking back now, I should have just given it to him. I don't know what I was thinking, like, because now it's just in a portfolio with 80 other paintings that are in a book. So it would have been cool to let him have it. But then I told him, I was like, I'm coming down to spring training. I'm going to give you a copy. And I printed out one and, waited out one morning where the players come in from the parking lot, saw him and gave it to him. I was like, Dom, I didn't forget you. Stuck it through the fence. He unrolled it and keep this with me. And he was just like, oh my God, yeah, I remember this. It's like, all right, see, man, my word, I told you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was funny. That was fun.
Let's see. Who's each of your baseball sports artist inspirations? Bill Gallo, etc. Have you ever noticed what Jerry Seinfeld has hanging up in his apartment?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gallo is amazing. I 2 or 3 Christmases ago, I got like a collection of like a bunch of his portfolio work, which is super cool. I see my personal inspiration is an artist. His name is Jason Polin. And just looking at his work, he was the kind of guy that I was like, wow, he's really having fun drawing. And he was drawing baseball games and things he saw around the city and stuff. And that really inspired me to just like, my drawing doesn't have to look exactly like something. It kind of goes back to what Dave was saying, is like you're just getting like the feel or the flow of the moment. And seeing his work that like changed my life for the much better.
I don't know about who was in Jerry's apartment, the artist, but Elaine's office art was actually one of my favorite artists, a Croatian artist named Mahanovic, and he does these realistic boat painting. If you see in Elaine's office, she has all his pictures up. So he's one of my guys. And sports artists, I mean, Leroy Neiman's great. I think for cartooning, Jim Davis, Garfield was one of my first, favorite artists, and Monet. That's my core guys.
Yeah, I would say sports artists now. I didn't get into doing sports art until recently, really. I would say it's still Greg Kreindler, man. Everything I watch him do, the paintings he produces is just it's incredible. It really makes me want to paint to that like caliber. But artist in general is an artist named Chuck Close. He to me is
oh yeah, he's another one
phenomenal artist. But his life story as well, like. Yeah. I'm not going to go into it because I can talk forever, but it's inspirational and it's amazing, like what he has done and does do. He kind of is like the top tier to me. But then a lot of the artists through history too, or the ones that you're forced to learn about in school. I like all of them. I gained a whole new respect for Picasso. I always thought he was just like a Cubist guy, and go to find out that that wasn't until way later in his life that
he was better at quotes.
Yeah,
he had the best lines. Quote.
But it's definitely Chuck Close, and then I would say I look to Kreindler all the time to just see how he works.
All right, have any of you guys done a Seaver tribute since his passing?
I did a cartoon of him with a black background, but no painting yet.
I painted him before, like a couple of years before his passing, but no, not since.
Yeah, no, I haven't really like sat down and drawn like a player in a while, but I was there for the the opening of 41 Seaver Way, so I got to draw that whole thing, which was really, really fun. So I drew a little sign that I don't know if that counts.
Sure, it counts to me. So, all right. Well, I got something cool. Majo did a great little time-lapsed picture, a painting of Joe McEwing, which is going to lead us into our next panel. So what I'm going to do is thank you guys for being up with us. You have any plugs of your websites or anything, or your social media handles, anything at all? So
just look down there, or where is it?
Yeah, down there.
Majo.com.
All right, guys. So I'm saying goodbye to you now. I'm going to remove you out of the thing, and then I'm going to play the Majo quick time and go into Matt and Joe.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm just looking for it. It's going to take a second. And here we go. All right, that was pretty cool. I love Maggio's stuff. I love it, especially when he does that, and I love when he does it when we have some of that's coming in for the QBC. He's one of the most talented painters I know, and he doesn't get enough push, so I always try to push him. Let me bring in Matt Cerrone right now. Hey, Matt.
What's going on, Keith? How's my audio?
Your audio is great. So,
Okay,
Matt's been great. He's always supported the QBC. He supported the bloggers back in the day. He has a whole bunch of his own stuff going on, and the fact that he was able to make time for us today is awesome. Let me bring in one of my favorite former Mets. He's actually somebody I don't mind seeing in a black jersey. He's he was always great. Just watching him play, no matter what position he was playing in for the night. Here he is, Super Joe McEwing.
How we doing, guys?
Thank you.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on for us, and we really appreciate it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump off and leave you guys to have the panel. And
that was amazing painting, by the way.
That's awesome. If you want, I could probably try to get Joe to Dave to send it to you if you want.
They did an outstanding job. That'd be great.
Here, hold on. Let me just put Dave in really quick.
Oh, all right,
Dave.
sure.
That's an outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely send it your way. That's awesome.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's very kind.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. Pulling Dave out. I'm going to jump out now and leave you and Matt to talk. And I'm going to pop in comments every now and then from the fans.
Okay.
All right. And I'll see you guys at the end.
Thanks, Keith. What's up, Joe? How are you? Good to see you.
How are you?
Good. We were trying to figure out, we talked yesterday, we were trying to figure out if we had ever met before in previous seasons. And I got to think at some point we did, but who knows? But it's good to see you again today.
Great seeing you as well.
So I guess to start off, the thing that whenever I think about you, from a Mets perspective and from a Mets fan myself, I think about how iconic you are. And I don't know that you even probably think about it that way among Mets fans, but
it's very
the
humbling.
reason I say it that way is because we always talk about a Joe McEwing-like player. And we say it all the time. Oh, they really need, a McEwing type guy. And I'm wondering if you realize that, or if you see yourself that way, or do you, obviously stats are one thing, but there's legacy and there's impact and influence and all that kind of stuff. And do you realize that you have that role among Mets fans?
First of all, it's very humbling to be thought of that way. I never really thought about it. My goal was to go out every day and be ready, be prepared to help a ball club win, and just go about my business the right way, my preparation, my work, being a good teammate, and helping any way we possibly could to win a game that day. And I only knew one way to go about it, and that was to go out there and give it everything you had for 27 outs. And at the end of the day, win or lose, you'd like to be on the winning side of it. But you knew at the end of the day, you could look yourself in the mirror and say, I was prepared. And if I didn't get the job done, which I didn't a lot of times, I knew I was prepared and that I could let it go faster and be ready to focus on the next day.
I wasn't going to ask you about any of these things, but I see all these jerseys in the back, specifically George Brett, who I loved watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what, these guys mean to you and what it meant to you. I'm assuming this is your collection and how it came about.
It is. And every single one of them means something different to me. Each one has its own story. And the one behind me, the Pete Rose one, it's I grew up watching in Philly. And that's how I wanted to go about playing the game. He left it all out there on the field every single day and played the game hard and gave it everything. He was prepared, and so I always enjoyed as a kid watching him play, and that's who I want to be in the backyard at 4 or 5 years old. You know, playing wiffle ball with my friends. You know, your imagery of being a Pete Rose, a Larry Boa, Manny Trio, great Maddox, Lazinski. You know, I was a huge Phillies fan, so you know the imagery and seeing that all come together in your own sense. That's who I tried to pattern my game off of.
So at some point you were, you know, a little leaguer, you're a high school player, you get to the big leagues. Who are you in awe of when you met them for the first time?
A lot of different individuals, you know, because I was a huge fan of the game, and I was a fan of players across. I mean, I can name almost every. When I was a kid, you can name every lineup, every guy on every team. It didn't matter if it was number 1 or number 25. You know, you can name each individual because you're such a fan of the game and you love the game, and each one had their own way of going about it and the way you appreciated them. So, you know, when I met Willie McGee for the first time, when I met Eric Davis for the first time, when I met McGuire for the first time, you know, I'm sitting here, I'm in awe, and I'm like, okay, I'm sitting in the same locker room as them, you know, and I was confident in my ability. I didn't really understand how great they were until later in my career, because I viewed myself, even though it's not true, on the same level as them. And that's the confidence I needed to compete and to not just get to the big leagues, but to be able to stay in the big leagues, to feel as if I could compete against these guys and I was good as them every day.
That confidence is something that always I hear whenever I talk to guys that play the game or play the game. I can't remember who I do. A conversation with Ron Darling years ago talking to me about golf and how the marked difference between playing golf with other professional athletes, obviously in his case baseball players, versus, you know, regular people, is that all the regular people were afraid. You know, they didn't think they could make the shot. They're always worried about what they couldn't do. And the professional athletes all looked at it as, I can do this. There was confidence to it. And if they didn't, they just worked harder to figure it out. But he always noticed that difference. And I'm wondering, you know, what you make of that, because I've heard that in other places.
I think that's 99% of the battle.
Yeah.
Is that confidence. You know, I use it. I always used it as motivation. You know, anyone that told me I couldn't do something, I used it as motivation, and that, you know, I'm going to prove you wrong, type of mindset. And you know, going through the minor leagues in every city, you know, you're not gonna be able to play in AA. You're not gonna be able to play in AAA. You're not gonna be able to play in the big leagues. Okay, you got to the big leagues, you're not gonna be able to stay. You know, and I tried to use it as motivation to continue to prove people wrong, and didn't allow any exterior distractions coming in to get. It was like a horse with blinders. You know, you don't want to see left or right. You want to see what's in front of you and what your job is, what your task is, to be able to have your own career, but also be an amazing, try to be the best teammate you possibly can, and help a team win.
We'll talk a little bit about David Wright in a minute. But I'm wondering, in your case, when you got to the big leagues, who maybe took you under their wing or showed you, you know, the way of the game and, you know, all that kind of stuff, who was sort of a mentor, so to speak?
There were a couple individuals that had a huge impact on my career, and on getting there and having a mindset. Jeff Manto, who I grew up with in Bristol, he was a little older than I. But we worked out every winter, and he was already in the big leagues at the time. He was back and forth between AAA and AA, and we'd hit every day. We talk, you know, and just asking questions about what the mindset of a big leaguer, how to go about it, work ethic. And then when I got to the big leagues, John Mabry, he went to Westchester. I'm from Bucks County, so we knew a lot of the same people. So when we were in the minor leagues, he was a year or two ahead of me, so he progressed quicker than I did. So then when I got to the big leagues, he told them to give me number 48 because he was number 47.
Right.
So I would locker next to him on the road, and then they gave me a locker next to him at home, and he showed me the way to go about it, how to be a big leaguer. You know, back then you weren't allowed in the training room till you had like 3 years, and you know, just the little things that you don't recognize and understand about you always respected your veterans and did anything they asked. So he took care of me, and that's the reason why I still wear 47 to this day, because the year after he got traded to Seattle and I got to spring training and I had number 47. I'm like, what is going on? And he said, give it to Joe. I don't want anybody else to have it. So that's why I always wear 47.
So you end up with the Mets. You know, coming from the Cardinals, what was your impression of, or what's the perception of New York, playing in New York prior, and then what do you see once you get there and you know have that experience in New York City?
First of all, growing up in Philly prepared me for everything that I was going to encounter going to New York. But it was always, New York is, for me, it was the mecca of sports. You know, you always wanted to compete in that environment. You wanted to compete against the best, and you wanted to compete in that arena. And, you know, when I got traded in the beginning, I didn't understand. You know, the Cardinals, I signed in 92. I got traded in 2000. So that was my family. That's the only thing I ever knew was the Cardinals. And
Cardinal way.
Yeah. And, you know, I when I got traded, it was a couple of days before we were leaving for Japan to open the season in 2000. So, you know, so everything just piled up, you know, going to a new team that I had no idea, you know, you understood the business side of the game at that point, you know, and when I got traded over, everything, you know, you had to pack up your apartment, and by the way, 5 days later, you're heading on a plane to Japan to open a season. And when we got to Japan, we played 2 exhibition games, and I was told that I wasn't going to be on the opening day roster when we went, and they were trying to make room, but could not at that moment. So, you know, so going from spending the whole year in the big leagues and a month in 98, and then going back to AAA while I was in Japan, you know, I still didn't understand why. And everything happens for a reason. It was the best thing, one of the best things that ever happened to me.
What was your impression of Bobby Valentine and just the team in general coming off of what they did in '99? There was momentum. You know, could you feel that? And what did you make of him? He's
Absolutely. I mean, and the greatest thing about it, they welcomed me with open arms. You know, everyone did, from Bobby to Robin, who I'm still extremely tight with now. Mike, Todd, you know, everyone welcomed me with open arms, and you know, I couldn't be thankful enough for the way I was received, and you know, even when I was sent down, you know, the discussions that were had, like, listen, don't put your head down, go down there, take care of business. You'll be back, and you'll be a part of this. You'll be part of a championship ball club, and that was the most wonderful thing about that team. It was so selfless. You know, everyone pulled for each other. We had an amazing group of quality veterans, and then young guys sprinkled in that helped us get to the point where we needed to be. And it was a memorable season.
It's interesting that they've had world championship teams that get to the World Series, great seasons and whatnot. But that 99, 2000 era, for me, maybe it was just the age that I was at, but to me, those are my favorite teams. I love them. And like you mentioned, the selflessness and the hustle to it. Guys that you never would have expected to be in positions and do what they did. It was really a hell of a run.
You know, you think about that outfield.
all the time. We talk about
and,
that.
and in today's game, that would be unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
When you had Benny in left, Jay Payton in center, and Jay Bell in right. And I think combined, because Derek Bell.
Yeah. No.
Okay, cut back in. Derek Bell, about halfway through the season, got hurt. And so we missed his offensive output. And, I think that team had 45 home runs from the whole outfield at that point.
That's amazing.
And one guy in the outfield has that now. So to think about how fortunate we were and how many things have to go right from February, March till the end of October, to put everybody in that position. And Timo Perez was a huge boost coming up in August, and almost carried us for a month. And so it was an amazing club that had amazing chemistry and the culture that you try to create on a winning atmosphere now.
It speaks to kind of what I said at the beginning, how you're remembered, how the team is remembered. They didn't win a World Series and you got there, but it's remembered in a way that is important because there's memories attached to it. So many little ups and downs and moments during that season when you thought it's over. There's firings and replacements. I mean, just the amount of stuff that happened during the course of that season reminds me of 15 in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Is special. And is that for you the season you remember the most when you look back on your career?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's like I just spoke about the culture.
Right.
No matter what was going on the outside, they didn't allow the distractions to come in.
How did that happen?
Because we had an amazing group of veterans, and Robin and Johnny and Outlighter and Hampton, and they didn't allow that to come in. When you got to the clubhouse, we expected to win every day, and if not, you knew it was going to be a fight to the end. And if not, if we didn't get a W that day, the next day, you know what? Every guy was prepared to win that day. It didn't happen. This game is extremely hard. The next day, we're going to go out and compete and put ourselves in a good position to win that day as well.
Talk to me about Shea Stadium. What was it like playing there?
Amazing. I mean, so many fond memories. I love the old school stadiums. The atmosphere of it, the smell of it, the vibrance of the old school, that the history of so many years filtered into one. And just being in the dugout and feeling it shake, from
in the stands, man.
And yes, it's a special feeling, and that doesn't you can't duplicate that feeling. And I'm getting goosebumps now because you can't, and that's why I try to be present and be in the moment every day, because you can't get those memories back. And then that's the things I remember.
See, and so this is interesting to me because
the passion of Mets fans, the passion of their club, the passion they have for each individual player. It's a special feeling.
This is interesting to me because you talk about that literally in the exact same almost words that David Wright has talked to me when I've interviewed him about different moments, specifically the World Series for him in 2015, taking the field, this being mindful of everything, and it's very similar. And so he speaks of you, obviously like a mentor. When he first came up, he rented I think it was the apartment next door. He had said, when he first came in and you were that guy for him, I mean, what did you make of this young kid coming up? What's it like to sort of it happened for you, like you mentioned earlier in your career. What was that? What did that mean to you?
Well, that's the thing about that's what's amazing about this game. It's the friendships, the memories that are created and that are still happening and still ongoing. And the first interaction I had with David was when he signed. They brought him to New York and had the press conference, showed him around the stadium, and we're in the cage working. And they came in and they're like, do you mind if David comes in and gets some flips? I'm like, are you serious? I mean, we're going to let an 18-year-old kid come in and take flips as we're trying to work and prepare for a game? I was obviously kidding. And I was joking around and I introduced myself. And the same way that interaction when I introduced myself to him and he introduced himself back is the same way I see him now. Nothing has changed. He's the same individual. He's an extremely amazing person. But when he got in the cage, he started hitting. I'm like, wow, that's a different sound.
Even at that age.
And you know that. You hear the sound. You're like, wait a minute, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's a special kid. And and we stayed in touch as he was going through the minor leagues, and we go to dinner and spring training because we have mutual friends. And then when he got to the big leagues, it was my turn to take care of what somebody else did for me. It was my turn to do it for someone else. And extremely thankful for it. He was like the brother I never had. And every night it was dinner at our house, and then going to the stadium, taking him out to dinner on the road, and those things. Just trying to guide him the right way, which he probably didn't need because he's that amazing. But just the things that were brought on to me, I was trying to give back to him. And
right. Of course. It's interesting. I would love to know that lineage, because it probably goes a long way.
Fraternity. It's fraternity. It's like a fraternity. It's a gift that keeps on giving. And that's what's so special about this game.
So you take a certain, this probably is an obvious yes, but do you take a certain level of pride when you watch as his career goes on, and then the way it ended too? What are you feeling when you watch him now and he's flourishing? And is there a certain sense of probably investment even to an extent, because you put time into
you don't do it for that. You do it for him. And for the game.
Proud.
Oh, extremely proud.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing I check in the morning after after our game. How David do. And because you cared. You cared about his success, his failures, and you could tell if you were getting texts in return or if you weren't. How he was going, and. But in a positive way, because you knew he had so much pride in what he does every day, the way he prepares his preparation. He don't want to let anybody down, and he's as amazing as he was as a player. He's a better person, and it was so nice to see his career play out. And I'm not extremely sorry. I'm sorry that the injuries didn't allow it to fulfill what it could possibly be, which was on pace for a Hall of Fame career, as my thoughts. But his willingness, I know how much he was hurting. His willingness to fight and prepare for a couple of years just to come back and play one game, just justifies the player he was and the individual he was, and how much he cared about the city of New York and Mets fans alike. And that's what he did it for. He didn't do it for himself. he did it for Met fans, and that's it justifies everything he is.
But before we get to the question, just the when I think about David and I think about that last game, it was honestly one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, and it wasn't about anything other than thank you. I mean, the adulation and the love and the appreciation that you felt in the stands, and not even from the stands. I mean, security guards and people. I mean, just everybody in the ballpark. I can't remember ever seeing all eyes on one person with that level of appreciation. It was really, really, really. It was touching even for me. Like I felt like, wow. I mean, it would be awesome. Think about what he's given and what he's getting back is really an amazing thing, just from a human perspective.
And that was on both ends. It was appreciation on both ends. From fans and himself alike, giving back to what they gave him, the energy they gave him every night he played, and that doesn't happen too much anymore. One individual playing their whole career in one city, and I know he's very thankful for that.
The similarities between him and Mattingly sometimes are pretty amazing. Just in terms of how the city viewed them, the fan base, how the career ended, where it could have gone. I mean,
that's a great point.
And I know he's talked to him about it when he was going through all that.
Really, I know that. That's a great point.
Yeah. So, question from Nancy and MJ, who are, by the way, are two terrific fans. I've met them.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, MJ.
They want to know if being a mentor and a friend to an upcoming player, do you think that's something that happens today?
It does. It does happen today, and and in the arena we're in now, it's we have to teach we have to let them know to give back, and it's happening. It's happening today. Players are taking guys under the wing and giving back, the same way that was passed along to them.
What do you make of the game today? Because you've been a minor league player or a major league player, you've been where you are right now with the White Sox. Like, you've seen the evolution of the game, the players. It's very different from when you played versus, say, the 80s and so on. So, I mean, what do you like about the way the game is right now? What would you love to see change?
Okay. No, it's interesting because everyone's saying the game is still the game.
Mm-hmm. Always will, right.
And the main thing is going out and competing and winning. Okay. Mm-hmm. And nowadays everybody's talking about the numbers, the on base. It's been talked about for 100 years. It's just different letters. It's different variables to it, and how to. And believe me, I love numbers. Take them and evaluate every situation, any possible way we can put an individual in a better position to be successful. Absolutely, absolutely. But a lot of things that are going on today were happening years ago. 100 years ago, there was guys with high on base and guys that had high slug but struck out a lot. Mm-hmm. Think about Rob Deere. So it's been going on for extremely long time, and I think as an industry, we're just tweaking it, making it better. Putting different letters on it and different ways to combat it. Think about when I was coming up. A lot of pitchers were four seamers, mm-hmm. curveballs, changeups. Okay. And then guys started making adjustments, and that's when the home run era came in. Okay. Then what did everybody start going to? Sinkers, cutters, sliders, splits. Right. How do you combat that? Start talking about launch angle. Mm-hmm. Right? You start talking about launch angle and twist, dissecting the swing and making it how it works best against the sinker, against the slider on a lower plane, and then what's the industry do pitching wise again? Start going back to four seamers, high four seamers, curveballs, and changeups. So I think the best way to try to stay ahead of the curve, constantly staying ahead of the curve, making the adjustments quicker than the other guy, the other team, the other individual. So I think it's a constant cat and mouse game that's what makes this game so beautiful, and if you can't break down video and watch, okay, this is what an individual is trying to do to me on the mound, four seam, and I won't make the adjustment, then shame on me. So at some point you gotta swallow your pride. Okay, I'm not gonna keep walking back to the dugout 0 for 4 every night without making an adjustment and waiting for him to come in my zone. No, I'm gonna have to make an adjustment, from pitch to pitch and understand how to combat it all. So, and I think that's where the game is getting back to. You're having so many athletic players now where, how many times you see nowadays where you see a 0-2, 1-2 fastball neck high getting hit opposite field because they know what guys are doing and they're not afraid to make the adjustment. So I think that's where, the cat and mouse and being athletic and understanding the situation that's presented in front of you of what the individual is trying to do on the mound to get you out. So the game is the game for me, and you just try to stay ahead of it and put yourself, your club, and the individual in the best position to be successful.
Right. So do you think a team like you had in 2000, specifically the outfield, do you think a team could get to the World Series today with an outfield like that?
Absolutely. With the pitching and defense that we had, absolutely.
Interesting. Because we talked yesterday about, defense up the middle and how important that is. So we'll talk about the current Mets team. I feel like, and I love Brandon Nimmo, but I feel like they need like a true blue glove first center fielder just because of the way, they're structured up the middle. And I think it helps the pitching staff. Is that something, and it's no disrespect to Nimmo because I love him and I want him on the team and I think he's a special player, especially in New York. But I do feel like they need that glove. How important do you think that is to a team's success, specifically this Mets team?
For me, defense is extremely important. The less outs you give away, the better position you're going to be in to win a ball game. And I don't know Nimmo very well. I haven't seen him play that much. From what I heard, he's an extremely hard worker and so I believe that an athlete like that is able to make adjustments and become the probably elite outfielder that he wants to be. If you're not strong in that area, you're strong in the surrounding areas. And so, and a way to combat that is with a rotation that has a lot of strikeout guys when less balls are put in play. You think about, you have 27 outs every night, and basically an average club strikes out 10, 11 times a night. So how do you make those other 16 outs productive? So I think it depends on the makeup of your ball club as well.
You've played every position but pitcher. This is a weird question, but if you were drafting a team, which is the one you start with?
The one I start with?
Yeah. Like, what's the, who are you, of all of them, what's the one that you want that you're going to select first? Yeah.
A shortstop.
Oh, okay.
A shortstop.
Why?
Because I believe that individual is a captain of an infield, captain of everything. and he's got to envision and see everything on the field and what every guy's doing, especially in today's game with all the shifting and communication that needs to go on. I think he is your quarterback. He's your leader. And then second would be a catcher that can handle a staff. And by the way, you got a real good one.
I'm not very familiar with McCann. I gotta say, I've been following things very recently. I kind of tuned out for a bit when I saw the Mets sign McCann. I thought, wait a minute, Brian McCann's still playing baseball. So
you got to.
But so tell me a little bit about him, because you see.
No, he's a leader in the clubhouse. Amazing in-game adjuster. You know, if you know, I see it like a lot of times in today's game, it's like the first quarter of an NFL game where everything's scripted, you know, and what he does extremely well, he's so prepared. He's a leader. He knows in that bullpen what that individual has that night. So if the game plan is this, wait a minute, that may not work tonight. We're going to have to readjust here. We're going to have to audible to something else. And I think he does an amazing job at getting the best out of every single guy in the rotation in the staff.
Talk about Lindor, because you're familiar. Obviously, you've watched him enough, competed against him. So I mean, A, getting him out of the division, and B,
thank you. Yes, I mean, first of all,
shortstop. So you know, is that the guy from New York?
Getting him out of the division is extremely helpful. Thank you. No, I couldn't say enough things about him. I appreciate the way he plays the game, how much joy he has in playing the game, how much fun he has in playing the game. And, you know, seeing him from the other side, you appreciate, you respect individuals that compete like that and have fun. You know, you didn't like him beating you. You didn't like him going out and getting hits against you, robbing singles and turning double plays against you. But I at the end of the day, you sit back and you respect it so much. You respect that. It's like he reminds me of a little leaguer still going out and playing the game.
That's awesome.
At extremely high level. I mean, he's extremely fun to watch. He's made for that city. You know, that fan base, the Met fan base will just embrace him like their own son, and he'll do the same.
It's the kind of trade that Mets fans have been drawing up for 30 years or so. Like we talk about all the time, pretty much since probably Piazza, you know, getting that level star that's going to come in and really, you know, have an impact, I think, on the city and on the fan base in that way.
When he makes everyone,
yeah, right.
That presence. It's tough to find,
right?
And I've never been in a room with him, and that's and like just having conversations with him and watching him go about it and how he leads on the field. It's tough to find.
And so a lot of that, I think, is because of the change in ownership, bringing in, obviously, Steve Cohen takes over, and he brings in Sandy Alderson, who I think gets a bit of a bum rap about being this small ball, money ball guy. He likes entertaining players. This is a guy who traded for Ricky Henderson twice and, you know, had Canseco and McGuire back in the day. Like, he likes those players. He just wants to make sure it's a good acquisition, a good signing, et cetera. And so, you know, they come in, they make that move. What is the perception being with another team, like around the game when the Mets shake it up, right? They bring a new owner takes over, who's going to make a difference, who probably is going to go for it. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw that opening press conference, which gave me goosebumps as a Mets fan. You know, what does that say around the league? What do you see as somebody who played for the Mets, but then also is, you know, not with them now, but still keeps track and sees what's going on, and you're in the game? I mean, what does that say to baseball?
I mean, you see a culture that is trying to be created in a positive way. You know, being a fan of the game, you sit back and you try to observe everything, and from a distance, trying to see what each club is doing and how they try to better themselves to put the organization and the city in a better position to be successful. And the moves they've made. I believe McCann was the first one.
Right.
And I thought in that moment, I understood what they were trying to do, from being with Mac for 2 years, understanding, how you're trying to build a winning atmosphere and a culture, and you're bringing in quality people, and they're two quality people, and plus the other moves they've made, and as far as looking at the other side, the culture that we've created also on the South Side, and the talent that we have and continue to build on to put us in position to be successful. It seems like the same scenario.
We're going to be wrapping up soon, but you played for the Cardinals and you just talked about culture. Do you see a way the Mets could have a Mets way, just based on, if you can speak to that? Obviously you're with an organization, but I mean, do you see, coming together, maybe what they would want to be?
You were frozen. I didn't hear it.
Oh, I was just saying, based on the acquisitions they made, and you were talking about McCann, I mean, do you see sort of a culture that maybe they're trying to put together?
Yes. One that is positive, sustainable for a long period of time.
Cool.
And, this is the foundation of it. Now, you bring in Mac for so many years, and then Lindor for so many years, and to go along with the culture that was already there, and everybody being on the same page for one common goal, and that's the win. And that's the culture we have tried to create in Chicago, and that we're on the right path to continue doing, and see the end of the goal, one that's sustainable for a long period of time.
You're in a 2-team city,
Yes.
and then you played for the Mets, who had the Yankees. But is that really a rivalry? Do you guys feel that, or is it just a fan base?
No, you feel it. You feel the energy. You see the shirts walking around town. You see the billboards, and I believe it's the same type of rivalry and energy wise, within a city. And, we're creating that. We're trying to create environment to bring positivity to the South Side and make it a winning town, the winning side of the town for a long period to come. Something that we've been building on for extended period of time.
So here's a question here from Brian Roberts, who's talking about the home run off Randy Johnson at Shea, and Shea Rockin', which, if you've ever, you'd think the place was going to fall down. Been there many times for things like that. He wonders if you remember that, hitting against him in that moment.
Yes, that was, that's when I just came up from AAA, and I played a couple games before that, and that day, I remember it was a Sunday. It was a getaway day. It was raining, and I remember that Randy was trying to get the game canceled because he liked the pitch in a controlled environment. And I think that day I finally felt like a Met. Where I was embraced. But also my productivity to be able to help us win. I felt like I was welcomed in fully as a Met, and one day I'll never forget. I won't.
Before we let you go, what is the Mets jersey? Is that your jersey behind? Because it's an '86.
Yeah, it's a throwback jersey.
Awesome. That's so great.
Yes.
So why that one specifically, not one of, like, you know, the black jersey or whatever?
I have all of them.
Okay.
I have all of them.
Because I mean, that's my favorite. Obviously, as a Mets fan who grew up in the '80s, you know, that's.
I love the black jersey.
You do?
Yes.
You want to see him bring it back? And it's a controversy among Mets fans.
I love the black jerseys.
Yeah.
I do.
I just think it's an era thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, you go, that to me, I see those jerseys, I think of you guys, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just an era, you know, so why not? What's the big deal?
I think it was the point. I think it was like, okay, we're winning today.
Right.
We're winning. It was a statement. It was a statement jersey.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's any other questions coming in. You know, so just talk quick about the White Sox. I mean, what's going on? What's next? You know,
we're excited. We're excited to get going.
Yeah.
No, we had a very productive season last year that fell short of what we tried to get to. And, you know, we're going to continue to build on that moving forward. And, you know, we're extremely excited to get going. We brought in some quality pitchers that are going to help, bullpen wise, rotation wise, adding to an already talented ball club that we had. And the beautiful thing about it is to see the growth of every single individual during this journey, you know, from the beginning. Right. You know, to see the growth of Tim Anderson and Abreu and Mancada and Giolito, just to see the continued growth and the fact now that they're not worrying about surviving and worrying about their own individual, getting their own individual self on pace. It's about winning now. Right. It's about winning. And if you play the game to win, all the individual numbers will always take care of themselves. And I think that's where we're at now. And it's an amazing environment that we have, you know, our young guys and our core guys, and then the individuals we have brought in as an organization.
Maybe we'll get a Mets White Sox World Series, and we'll get you in the Citi Field, and that would be pretty exciting. It'd be pretty fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be amazing.
I know they want to wrap up, you know, so they wanted me to ask you about Foley's. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
About going there and my guess, but you go.
No, Sean's an extremely amazing person, so giving person, one that's gave back to the game, the city, and the community. Everybody he comes in contact with, he makes better and brightens their day. You know, and I've known Sean for 20 years now, and it's disappointing to see it being shut down because there's so many memories and that were established in that environment, so many friendships, and it was always a place to go to talk baseball, to, you know, talk about life, and it was a gift that always gave, you know, every season, you know, football season, hockey season, basketball season, you know, each individual nights that you know, he'd have St. Louis Blues nights, and you know, just the environment that was created there, and you know, one thing that meant so much to me, and just another telling of how amazing David is. I brought David there after his first game, and we went in the back, we ate, and that's awesome. After his last game, he sent me photos of him there, and it's like he said, Joe, I just want to show you where it started, it's going to end.
That's tremendous.
It meant a lot to me.
But see, that gets back to the
and that's the type of individual Sean is.
Right. That gets back to the first question I asked, which is just, you know, the memories and legacy and how you remembered and all that kind of stuff is always what's most important. The rest of it's just concrete and walls and things, and you know, he's remembered all those. It's just, that's what's important. And like I said to you earlier, you're remembered, you know, as being that Joe McEwing player, and you always will be. And we're all appreciative of that, of you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Joe, thank you. You don't know how much we appreciate this.
No, thanks for having me.
I know all the fans in the comments are loving it. Thank you so much. Good luck with this upcoming season. Matt, thank you so much.
Matt, thank you.
I'm going to let you guys go. I don't want to hold up any more of your time. Again, thank you again, Joe. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to let you guys go.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, guys, that's the first ever Queens Baseball Convention that was done virtually. I hope everybody loved it. I hope this was a good time. Maybe we'll try to do something else, just to help pass the time in the future. You can see my hair is going crazy. I had to take off the hat. Again, thank you guys. Check out queensbaseballconvention.com, at QB Convention on Twitter, at QB Convention on Instagram, at MediaGoon, themediagoon.com, and we posted up that link for the tip jar. You can hit that up, and make sure you tell your friends about the QBC YouTube channel to check out the Virtual QBC from today. Please like, subscribe, hit notifications. You never know what we're gonna do. I'm actually talking about maybe we'll do a show every week of just talking, like we've been doing with the QBC conversations. But anyway, thanks guys. I'm toasted. Have a good one. Talk to you later.